Chapter 404. Luonan felt like a dog. Xie Junping and his group didn't show up when he needed them. But when it was the most awkward time, they danced around happily. It was fine if they came, but Mo Pang and Mo Han didn't have fun at the reality battlefield and the uncanny valley. Why did they come back? Actually, Mo Pang and Mo Han came back because they were worried. They didn't understand. Why did Luonan fight so well in the hero seat and then give up in such a great situation? His wristband said that he was fine, but how could it be accurate? Mo Pang and Mo Han came back, and the others came back with a clamor. Only Yu Qin and Turner were missing. Those two were probably embarrassed by Yu Zheng's actions and deliberately hid. But who could compare to Luonan in embarrassment? His intimate actions with cat eyes were completely seen by that bastard Xie Junping. Oh, there was also Shui Lei. Even if the angle was a bit off, Xie Junping's reaction was more or less the same. Yes, it was Xie Junping's reaction. That bro's reaction was too exaggerated. Not only was he stunned at the door, he actually wanted to turn around and walk out. Walk out my ass. Even if Luonan and Cat Eyes did have a bit of an ambiguous relationship. Well, even if they really kissed, why are you pretending to be pure? Aren't you just luring others to think in the wrong direction? Luonan took a deep breath. Cat Eyes' wine fragrance still lingered in his mouth and nose, including the delicate touch of her hair against his lips. This abruptly woke him up, and he suddenly felt a bit of gratitude towards this old driver. Due to the haste of the matter, he was stunned on the spot. He didn't know how to make evasive movements. He still maintained an extremely intimate and ambiguous relationship with Cat Eyes. In reality, it was just lips kissing forehead. If Xie Junping hadn't reacted too quickly and messed up the formation, Mo Pang, Mo Han, and the others would have definitely seen them. Then they would have exploded. Luckily, he could still salvage the situation. Luonan suddenly straightened his back and stood up. His knees bumped into the coffee table due to the haste. The sound of the crash was quite clear in the room. Xie Junping was quickly pushed in by the door. Mo Pang and Mo Han also swarmed in. The originally empty luxury room was instantly filled to the brim. The fruit and drinks Xie Junping brought weren't afraid that no one would be able to digest. Luonan took advantage of the chaos to drag his aching legs 2 steps outside. He nearly bumped into Shui Lei, who was returning with a tray of wine. His best friend shifted his body to maintain the balance of the wine tray. He was as dedicated as a real bartender, and he had an innocent expression that said, "I don't know anything" on his face. However, his flickering eyes had long since betrayed him. In comparison, after old driver Xie Junping's initial loss of composure, he and Hu Huaying formed a perfect example of a gang of scoundrels. They spoke and laughed calmly. With a sentence like, "Nanster, are you having a get-together with a beauty?" Along with the fruit platter and drinks, they quickly reversed the chaotic and subtle atmosphere in the private room, causing it to become lively. During this time, Cat Eyes was very steady. Her posture didn't change at all. It was as if everything that had just happened was an illusion. She even hooked her finger at Shui Lei and took a glass of whiskey from the wine tray. She held it in her hand and shook it slightly, making the ice cubes and the whiskey make a slow and monotonous sound as they collided. Luonan still had to make way for Shui Lei. He felt that he had been reduced to a waiter. Wait a minute. Wasn't this more like a special service personnel? He could not help but clench his teeth. He was embarrassed, but also angry. If Cat Eyes wasn't afraid, then what the hell was he afraid of? At this time, the majority of the people who had rushed in had their gazes fall on the sofa corner. They were already unable to see the situation. Cat Eyes sat alone on the sofa's main seat, while Luonan and Shui Lei stood together. There was a certain distance between the two. If one were to forcefully say that there was, then it would probably be that Cat Eyes' makeup and actions were extremely mature and charming. It caused several young men and women to stare stupidly. Then, the gazes of a portion of people were attracted by the alcohol set that Shui Lei was carrying. Tong Hui of the Gray combo hit the nail on the head with a single sentence. The Adelberg classic. Wah! You guys actually opened the original whiskey. The alcohol content of this whiskey was over 60%, and the taste was quite strong. It was certainly not suitable for young people to drink. Shui Lei discovered this when he opened the bottle. He rushed to express, "I'm not drinking it. Whoever wants to drink it can have it." Luonan felt his mouth go dry at this time. Perhaps it was because of his guilty conscience, but he felt that Cat Eye's breath lingered on his lips. He saw that the amber alcohol was soaked in ice cubes. It looked quite thirst-quenching, and the smell was quite strong. Luonan grabbed a glass and drank it in passing. Holy crap! Tong Hui was immediately shocked. Luonan also realized that there was a problem. The alcohol entered his throat. Even though the effect of the ice cubes had been released, the burning sensation of the alcohol rushing into his nose and throat and the smoky, fiery, and high-pressure taste nearly made him spit it out. Luckily, the orifice of his mouth and tongue operated naturally after being stimulated. The jade liquid of the spirit pond silently moistened his mouth and nose. It melted away the rush that could make one's rationality explode. All that was left was a rich aftertaste that came one after another. Luonan unconsciously swallowed the glass of alcohol. Luonan didn't know how to appreciate alcohol. He was already quite satisfied that he didn't make a fool of himself on the spot. What truly surprised him was that the orifice of his mouth and tongue had this kind of effect. Even so, he absolutely wouldn't take a second sip. Luonan had never had such close contact with alcohol in his 16 years of life, aside from the alcohol stove. After the alcohol entered his stomach, it was as if a fire had been ignited in his entire body. It burned his entire body hot. The restlessness that had just been suppressed seemed to swell up once more. It wasn't that he wanted to do anything. He just felt that there were many ideas that were meaningless. He looked at Cat Eyes. He turned his head to look at the calm and composed beauty on the sofa. He chuckled, feeling that he was right. Mo Peng shouted loudly, "Nanster, you're secretly drinking alcohol." Luonan rolled his eyes at him. "I'm thirsty for drinking in broad daylight." For the sake of proof, he simply poured the remaining ice cubes in the glass into his mouth. He chewed a few times and swallowed it all. This method was truly bold. Mo Peng and the others felt a chill in their hearts when they saw it. Tong Hui was very impressed. One look and you can tell that he's a veteran. Back then, I also drank it in one gulp and then I directly sprayed it on my dad's face. Don't tell me that drinking ice cubes can suppress it? It looked like he really wanted to go home and try it out. Luonan observed a moment of silence for him. This brother certainly didn't have the orifice of his mouth and tongue or the ability to transform the jade liquid of the spirit pond. Hopefully, the dual stimulation of alcohol and ice cubes wouldn't cause him to doubt his life. After this interruption, the direction was completely crooked. The awkward atmosphere was pretty much dispelled. Luonan's state of mind grew more and more natural. He once again took on the responsibility of being the host and introduced everyone. Xie Junping and Hu Huaying were both seniors of Acumen College. They were older than Mo Peng and the others by 5 or 6 years. They were able to lower their statuses so they were easy to blend in. Luonan had only met Sissy Du Yong. Luonan had only met him once, so he could only give a simple introduction. However, Tian Qi was here. A month ago, Du Yong was still the president of the Mystic Arts Research Society. Though he had abdicated his position without much glory, Tian Qi, a basic member of the society, was still worth giving everyone an additional introduction. On the other hand, Cat Eye's identity was a bit more difficult to deal with. She had been sitting on the sofa all this time. She had a smile that wasn't a smile. She wasn't close but she wasn't far. Plus, there was the problem of her name. It was a bit strange to introduce her. Dance teacher. The group of boys and girls were quite confused. This didn't fit in with Luonan's circle. Papercut had just returned with Tianxi not too long ago. He didn't even have the time to greet Cat Eyes. As the etiquette teacher, Papercut took it upon himself to block the bullet. He even pulled Tianxi along with him. Didn't you say that you've recently become interested in the mystic arts? Aside from the school society your little brother is in, there are actually some interest societies, hobbyist societies, and the like in society. For example, we are all like-minded people who gather together. Cat Eyes is a senior member of this society. You can get closer to her in the future. Tianxi didn't open her mouth after returning to the room, but most of her gaze fell on the sofa corner. Half of it was given to Luonan, and the other half was given to Cat Eyes. She was suddenly seen through by Papercut, and her mind panicked. However, she was quick-witted in the end. She immediately had the awareness to act as a shield. She immediately walked forward, bowed, and extended her hand across the short table. "Hello, Sister Cat Eyes. I'm Tian-si. Please advise me in the future." Cat Eyes still hadn't gotten up from the sofa. She just extended her hand and lightly touched Tian-si's. She appeared a bit cold. "I can't say advise you, but since you've entered this circle, there are opportunities to exchange experiences." Tian-si smiled warmly. "I haven't officially joined yet." "Is the day when you're involved with a certain person still far away?" Tian-si was a bit startled. She locked gazes with Cat Eyes in the next moment. She only felt that her hair seemed misty, but it was actually cold, clear, and sharp. There was also a subtle implication that said, "I understand everything." Her heart clenched a bit. She was actually stunned for a time. The two extremely beautiful women looked at each other across the short table. The scene was clearly extremely gorgeous, but under the dim lighting, the dark tones quietly played the leading role. There was an instant when the noisy room suddenly quieted down. Then it was covered up by Papercut's pretentious Shanghai laughter. Papercut had done quite well, but he had underestimated the power of the young's imagination. "It's a bit weird," Emo Pang and Emo Han whispered to each other. "Did you notice? Nanster seems to know only big sisters." "Oh, maybe it's aunties." "How heartbreaking." Luonan held back his laughter and glanced to the side. The current Cat Eyes was indeed decadent. Her flame-red lip makeup and her hairstyle that covered half of her cheeks were very flirtatious. Under the dim lighting, she appeared to be much older than Luonan, a 15 or 16-year-old student. Perhaps she really was twice his age. Strictly speaking, calling her auntie wasn't a big deal. But the young man's imagination was unleashed. It was a standard weapon of mass destruction. It was impossible to control. Emo Pang said, "Could it be an indecent relationship or an Azura field?" "Don't talk nonsense. Maybe they're just friends despite the difference in age. But the problem right now is that the girls Nanster is dating are all older than him. This trend isn't right. Why is it like this? I heard that little Nanster's family situation." "What about my family?" "I'm talking about his birth parents. His parents aren't by his side. He misses them for a long time and so on. Maybe his Oedipus complex is a bit heavy?" "Searched to death." Luonan nearly crushed the empty glass in his hand. "Can you two be any louder? Don't you know that a good half of the people in the room are ability users? You're trying to ruin me." Before he could finish his thought, two people in the room had already spat. Papercut had just taken a glass of alcohol from Shuelei and took a sip. He had come back late, so he didn't see the most awkward moments. He lacked resistance, and now he collapsed from being teased. It was only logical that he choked on the peat-flavored whiskey. The other person who spat was Xie Junping. It was just that he spat out mineral water. This was a bit odd. Luonan discovered that Xie Junping hadn't touched a drop of alcohol today. He didn't even drink a beverage. He just drank a glass of mineral water. Also, were Emo Pang and Emo Han whispering that loudly? Xie Junping, who was nearly 5 meters away, could actually hear them? When did his eyes and ears become so sharp? Luonan sized up Xie Junping seriously. The two hadn't met many times during this time. Luonan felt that Xie Junping had gotten a bit thinner, but his spirit wasn't bad. What was funny was that Xie Junping was wearing a very old-fashioned buttoned gown. It was the uniform of an old man who practiced his morning exercises. No matter how Luonan looked at it, Xie Junping looked completely out of place in the amusement center. Xie Junping had a very stiff appearance. It didn't seem like he was cosplaying or anything of the sort. Luonan thought back to the magical array and other elements that Luonan had mentioned before. The matter was quite odd, but it wasn't easy to ask about it. Then he saw Papercut's penetrating insight. People of the same age as Emo Pang and Emo Han shouldn't be placed together with Cat Eyes and the others. There were many topics that simply couldn't be discussed. Papercut was lucky enough to escape the misfortune of spitting out alcohol from his nostrils. He felt that he needed to increase the intensity of his brainwashing, so he ferociously told Emo Pang and the other young boys and girls, "People like us all like those mysterious things. We often get together and exchange our experiences. Cat Eyes and I just happened to be in the vicinity today, so we took the opportunity to come over and play. Please don't mind us if we usurp the host." "Oh, No wonder Nanster wanted to join the Mystic Arts Research Society. Mo Pang knew of this situation, so he filled in the blanks in an instant. However, his gaze continued to move back and forth in the corner of the sofa. The Azura arena had nothing to do with one's hobbies. Mo Han's ability to accept these strange things was a bit lacking. She turned to look at her close friends. Mystic arts. Is it something like tarot cards? Tarot cards are very, very effective. Xiao Pei, who had always been a person of few words, was actually a fan of the related field. She was a bit excited. This also ignited a small wave of discussion among the girls. Although it was far from Papercut's implicit description, wasn't this the most ideal situation? Luo Nan gave Papercut a thumbs up in his mind. He remembered that Papercut had said this back at Ocean Sky Cloud City. Back then, he had fooled Xie Junping and Hu Huaying. Now it was Mo Han and Mo Peng's turn. It could be said that Papercut and Luo Nan were echoing each other without a single flaw. Look, the Mystic Arts Society will definitely be able to help. Xie Junping turned his head to whisper to Du Yong. He had an expression that said, "Listen to me." Du Yong still had a mixture of impatience and skepticism on his face. There are many branches of the mystic arts. Magical arrays are a very specialized field. Papercut's ears were sharp. He tilted his head to look at Du Yong. What did you just say? Magical arrays? Du Yong's patience had long since been exhausted from the tedious introductions. All that was left was impatience. Papercut's question was the same as opening his mouth to release a flood. He didn't care what the situation was. He just raised his voice and said, "Recently, old Xie and I were at a club. We made contact with a fellow practitioner. He expressed that he could guide us through the door, but there was a threshold of spiritual awakening that required the assistance of a magical array." His voice was sharp and soft. He spoke quickly, and the field he touched upon was mysterious. In the time it took to say a few words, the group of boys and girls were already confused. Chapter 405. Seeing this, Papercut gave Du Yong a meaningful glance. He wanted Du Yong to slow down. However, Papercut still did not understand Du Yong. This neurotic fellow was already on the verge of collapsing from all his hard work. He would not stop talking. Hu Huaying saw the problem and wanted to stop him, but in the end, she was unable to. This brother was completely stuck inside. He just treated everyone present as part of the Mystic Arts Society. He minded his own business and said, "Let me use the projector." He fiddled with his wristband and connected the data to the projector. A dazzling complex diagram appeared in the center of the room's gaming area. It was a combination-type magical array, and it looked quite complete. The magical array was roughly divided into 4 layers. The overall composition was a deep blue color, and the symbols at the key nodes were dark red and dark gold. The overall color of the array was restrained, but it was very gorgeous. Wah! Mo Pang and the others gasped in surprise. A neatly pieced together, a perfectly organized diagram. It possessed a very artistic feeling. Those special symbols, configurations, and connecting lines were filled with a mysterious beauty that seemed awesome even though they did not understand it. They did not understand Du Yong's theory, but they could feel the shock from it. Of course, it was more suitable for their imaginations. Du Yong grew more and more irritable when he saw this diagram. He fiercely waved his hand twice, warping the light and shadow of the magical array. It took a moment for it to return to normal. "It's this damned format. Damn it!" Luo Nan was quite sensitive when he heard the word format. He raised an eyebrow. "It's not that format. It's the file format." Xie Junping knew what was bothering Luo Nan. He saw that his companion was unable to communicate normally, so he took the initiative to explain, "The wristband doesn't support the file format of this design diagram. We can only enter read-only mode and look at the projection. However, the computer in the projector in the private room was fine, so we copied it and modified it. We didn't expect it to suddenly reset, so we didn't have time to save it. All our efforts were gone. However, even if we didn't save it, the verification itself had failed." He was in a terrible mood in the VIP room, but he calmed down when he arrived at Luo Nan's side. He even laughed at himself. "Just a little bit more." Du Yong roared at Xie Junping, but his sharp and gentle voice didn't seem threatening at all. "It's all your fault. You should have given up earlier. Why did you cancel the subscription? Xie Junping spoke to him kindly. You've already tried more than 10 times before. Do you remember what tutor said? If you make the same mistake 3 times, it will exceed the limits of rationality. You are full of douqi after that. I think it's not wrong to ask you to calm down. It's rare to see Xie Junping reasoning with someone. Luonan snickered to himself, but Papercut came over and whispered, Do you think of anything when you see this thing? Yes, something not so good. Luonan knew what Papercut was talking about. Last time at Fudong Main Street's Frost River Reality, it was also a magic array. It was also a member of Acumen College's Mystic Arts Research Society. His name was Huang something. Just like that, the forged human-faced arachnid became the experimental product of the Order of Justice. Luonan was still extremely sensitive to such matters. Luonan's gaze rested on the projection of the magic array. From the perspective of the mystic arts, Luonan didn't have much to say. At most, he had a bit of a basic concept. However, from the perspective of the operational structure of energy and information, he had a bit of a right to speak. He tried to straighten out the order laws and principles inside, and he started with a 3-level structure of formatting theory out of habit. He was entranced for a time. On the other side, Papercut directly asked Luonan, This magic array can be used immediately, right? What I mean is that you don't need to arrange and engrave it. You just need to use the light from the projector. Yes. This is what tutor meant. Du Yong nodded like he was pounding garlic. He was actually able to see this point with a single glance. Du Yong's confidence in Papercut and the society instantly rose. Did you hear that? Hey. Papercut wanted to talk privately with Luonan, but he saw that this bro was already entranced. Papercut could only give Luonan a light nudge, telling him not to rush into a domain that others could not understand. First, figure out the surrounding information. Once you have a direction, you can talk about professional matters. This way, you don't have to worry too much. This was the advice of a veteran. Luonan was quite convinced. However, Luonan really did have a vague idea after sweeping a few glances, and it wasn't from formatting theory. It was a very rare situation. Luonan reluctantly glanced a few more times, temporarily turning his mind to the plane of reality. He inexplicably glanced over and saw that Cat Eyes had been tasting wine in the sandy corner all this time. She had poured an unknown number of cups. Cat Eyes is in a bad mood. I can tell that she's in a bad mood. Let's not bother her for now. Papercut indicated for the two of them to go first. He felt that Luonan wasn't paying attention, so he repeated the information he got from Du Yong. Only then did he laugh. It's a very familiar situation, right? Luonan nodded. Papercut wasn't present at the time. He must have read the operation briefing in detail afterward. And the main source of information for this briefing was Luonan. Of course, he wouldn't forget. It's exactly the same as last time. Are you talking about the Order of Justice? It shouldn't be. If it's the Order of Justice, the inner magic ring will certainly show an extremely clear balance or imbalance. It's quite easy to recognize. I learned a bit after the event. It seems that the technique of forming a magic array through projection has spread over the past 2 years. Many orders are doing this. Then, Luonan felt that the direction was a bit chaotic. I currently have a direction. The main structure of this magic array is quite complete. It doesn't have those laughable mistakes or the rigidity that imitates ancient times. It isn't some kind of charlatan scammer. The difficulty of drawing it isn't high either. All you need to do is be patient. On the other hand, the so-called adaptive adjustment is quite interesting. It tests one's spirituality and creativity in related fields. It looks like a written entrance exam. Is the order recruiting? It's spiritual awakening. The name matches the reality. However, no order has ever done this before. They place more emphasis on the pious faith of their believers. Luonan keenly grasped the most crucial piece of information. Never before? Definitely not. It might not necessarily be an order. It could be a firm like the Society or Her Majesty Empress Wu. Papercut grinned. This is the importance of surrounding information. I just asked little Xie. Their teacher taught them spiritual awakening techniques. There are very clear religious rituals and directions. Luo Nan rolled his eyes. You can just say it directly. Creation. Which one? Chapter 406. Do they really think they're the creator? Luo Nan was astonished. They sure have a big tone. Is it some world-class order? This is where the problem lies. Papercut shrugged. I just did a search. There's no relevant information in the database. Neither the society nor the military and political departments of Xia City have any records of this. In other words, it's very likely that this is a new order, a new power that hasn't entered everyone's line of sight. Aren't you going to consult the secretary about this new information? Luo Nan blinked. Sister Yueyin? Trouble her? Is this a rare situation? Papercut nodded. New orders that are so organized right from the start are indeed rare. Actually, there have been very few new orders in recent years. After all, the area covered by the inner world is growing larger and larger. You know what I mean. Luo Nan really did understand. As the influence of the inner world on the society of the modern world grew stronger and stronger, their ability to unearth and nurture talents was enough to minimize the existence of undiscovered pearls. Under these circumstances, an extremely mature new order suddenly popped out from a crack in the rock. Everyone couldn't help but think in a more conservative direction. Luo Nan was about to contact He Yueyin, but he had second thoughts. It would be best to let her take a look at the magical array. It could be considered a reference. He tried to communicate with Du Yong. Can you make a copy of the magical array? No problem. Du Yong was so straightforward that it was suspicious. Xie Junping gave an additional explanation. According to what the instructor said, the matter of spiritual awakening should be done by gathering the wisdom of all parties. There should also be the help of friends to obtain the best plan. There's no need to be so secretive and secretive. It looked like a very open-minded order. Luo Nan and Papercut glanced at each other. Papercut asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Is it convenient for you to introduce the instructor who led you in? Perhaps you know him." Xie Junping was truly magnanimous to a certain extent. He didn't even stumble. His last name is Wan. We all call him Dean Wan. He works in a welfare home in the Forest Wall district. He's truly capable. This sort of information acquisition simply didn't give one any sense of accomplishment. Luo Nan was shaking his head when a light bulb suddenly flashed in his mind. A scene appeared in his mind. It was the memory of him controlling ink to probe the Forest Wall district last week when he was outsourced scouting. He had once seen an ability user there. The ability user had the intention of preaching and preaching. Even children as far away as Trigate District went over to listen. Could it be that person? Of course, it was wrong to make random guesses, but the combination of preaching and Forest Wall area and other factors increased the chances of success. If it was really him, then that person's career would be much bigger than expected. Luo Nan didn't have any hard evidence for this conjecture. It was hard to explain with the special perspective of long-range perception, so Luo Nan didn't say much to Papercut. He received the document Du Yong transferred over and used the Hexa ear to converse with He Yueyin. However, in the next second, the other side indicated that it was busy and the call was not connected. This wasn't strange at all. 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening was one of He Yueyin's busiest times. Unless it was an extremely urgent matter, it would be pushed to the back. Luo Nan thought for a bit and created a temporary mission. He pulled He Yueyin, Papercut, Xue Lei, and Cat Eyes into it. Only then did he send He Yueyin a message and a document. It was a multi-party sharing. Papercut glanced at it and said, "Oh, Cloud Map. This is the most suitable mapping software for creating magic arrays. It doesn't seem like a particularly closed sect. That might be good news." Luo Nan noticed that the file displayed a clear icon. The Hexa ear can read it. Of course, this kind of practical function still needs to be integrated into it. Luo Nan saw Du Yong gnash his teeth at the read-only projection, but he was unwilling to copy the file onto the computer no matter what. He felt that there really was something wrong with this bro's brain. Luo Nan sighed. "Forget it. Just use mine." He directly connected the Hexa ear to the projector. He didn't need to switch. He just opened it from the mission window. He set up an open mode of operation, removing the read-only restriction. Everyone could operate it. He casually swiped and left a clear mark on the magic array. The mark was preserved. In the next moment, he cancelled the mark. He tried it a few times and confirmed, "You can modify it now. You can try to recall it and find the feeling. Let us see your train of thought. Relax, this will be preserved at all times." Luonan rubbed his fingers halfway through his words. He seemed to be deep in thought. The feeling of light streaking past was very interesting. It also gave him a more direct feeling toward the order and method of the operation of the magic array's energy and information. It made his already fuzzy inspiration become clear once more. His thoughts immediately sank into it. Du Yong was skeptical at first, but he soon saw the tool window of the cloud map software. His heart swelled with enormous joy. He was just about to operate it when he saw Emo Han and a few other girls trying to operate it out of curiosity. He didn't even think before he shouted, "Don't break the template." This shout was the limit of his reprimand. The gentle and quiet Xiao Pei Pei was the most timid. She was so shocked that she took a step back and repeatedly apologized. Emo Han wasn't afraid of him. She was even more annoyed that he had startled her friend. She said disdainfully, "There's a rollback operation." "What are you afraid of?" Du Yong was truly shocked by his terrible memory. He shook his head over and over. At this time, he displayed an extremely repulsive mentality toward all non-professionals. It was impossible to communicate with this kind of neurotic person. Papercut understood this point very well. He turned to look at the group of boys and girls. "You guys aren't going to play? We professionals. Enthusiasts can discuss it here." Emo Han looked at him with wide eyes. Hey, are you guys trying to clear the place and drive people away?" Papercut obviously wouldn't bicker with a little girl. He turned to ask Luonan, "How about we change locations first?" He felt that things like data migration couldn't be simpler with the Hexa ear. He could also logically separate people. Many things would be easier to talk about. But when he turned his gaze over, he saw that Luonan was staring at the magic array without looking away. Luonan turned a deaf ear to Papercut's suggestion. Papercut could only bump Luonan again helplessly. "Ha! Oh, hold on." It wasn't easy for Luonan to come out this time. He casually responded with a few words, but his gaze remained fixed on the structure of the magic array. He even extended his hand to touch it. Du Yong's tolerance toward this fellow traveler was much higher. He especially liked Luonan's ability to concentrate. He even had some expectations. He couldn't help but ask, "You have some inspiration?" "Yes, I have an idea. I feel that this magic array lacks a bit of texture." "Which one?" "Texture. The reality of matter." Luonan also needed someone to communicate with him. He observed as he organized his words, "If you view the magic array as a building, then the structure and lines are viewed as rooms and pipelines. Your template is more like a blueprint. There are no materials. There are no fillers. It's just a three-dimensional diagram." What Luonan didn't say was that the magic array that Huang had set up last time had a solid medium. It was intrinsically a level higher than this one. It wasn't the fault of the map. It was the gap between people. And this gap wasn't in mystic arts knowledge. Du Yong was the former president of the Mystic Arts Research Society. He was a level higher than Huang, who didn't do proper work. Then, it was very likely that it was thoughts, desires, and other existences on the mental plane. Luonan didn't continue this train of thought. He wasn't a believer of the order of creation. Faith and desires had nothing to do with him. He was more interested in other directions. Could this texture be replaced by other means? More specifically, by the power of the soul or the power of interference. Papercut didn't want to disturb Luonan when he saw Luonan's state. The world in the eyes of a genius like Luonan was intrinsically different from others. The angle and depth in which he looked at problems were greatly different. Inspiration formed from such a perspective was extremely precious. Who would bear the responsibility if it was destroyed? After a moment of hesitation, Tianxi took the initiative to take on the task of dispatching. "How about we go play in Area A for a while? Junior Luonan clearly isn't doing his job as a host. I'll entertain him so that he doesn't continue to lose face for our Acumen College." "Wah! Sister C is so heroic." Tianxi's deliberate derogation clearly suited the appetite of this group of boys and girls. It also lowered their rejection mentality to the minimum. It was extremely effective. On the other side, Hu Huaying wasn't stupid either. She echoed Tian Ci's words. I agree with head Tian's words. The brains of this group of people who study the mystic arts aren't normal. The juniors of 6th High might think that our Acumen College is suffering from hysteria. It just so happens that there's a VIP room above us. We can't leave it if we want to. Let's move our position and leave this place for them to play with. The allure of the VIP room exceeded that of the luxury room. It was even stronger than the public area of Area A. Quite a few people's eyes lit up as soon as these words were spoken. Hu Huaying gave Tian Ci a meaningful glance, telling her to look after them first. She turned her head to ask Xie Junping for permission. The VIP room was reserved by Xie Junping. The group of people couldn't enter the VIP floor without the appropriate permission. The group of boys and girls walked out the door. Luo Biao whistled. Normal room, luxury room, VIP room. So we're here to play and level up today. Mo Peng nodded fiercely with a drooling face. I've been looking forward to the beautiful girls' dance battle for a long time. The lighting effects of the VIP room will certainly be better. I'll design the lighting costumes later. Dance costumes, sailor costumes, flight attendant costumes, and so on. We'll take turns wearing them. You pervert. Ruan Zihue kicked him. Mo Peng laughed and suddenly pulled open the door to escape. But who knew that when he pulled, the weight wasn't right. It tightened and then loosened. Mo Peng used the wrong amount of strength. His body staggered and fell backward, crashing into Luo Biao. The door was pulled open as well. Someone from outside fell head first into the room and fell face first into the mud. Ha! Who's? Yu Zhang. Though the figure fell to the ground, he was still recognized when he struggled to get up. At this time, Yu Zhang was wearing a set of external equipment that had anti-collision functions. It didn't hurt, but he was in a sorry state. Yu Zhang was having all sorts of trouble tonight. He had just crawled out of vomit when he fell face first into the mud. His chin had collided with the smooth floor, hurting his mouth, teeth, and tongue. A bellyful of evil fire rushed to his head. He crawled up and shoved Mo Peng. Motherfucker, what the hell are you doing? Mo Peng was a bit embarrassed at first, but his expression immediately changed when he was scolded directly in the face. As for that push, it didn't really matter. He wanted to scold back, but he had more confidence in the end. He sneered and said, I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be F***ed by a hand cannon in all kinds of positions? Yu Zhang's face turned pale, then purple. The only thread of reason in his brain suddenly snapped. He cursed again and swung his fist, smashing it towards Mo Peng's face. Things had happened hastily. Everyone was relying on instinct. Mo Peng was a bit plump, but he was a stout and nimble fatty. He had been smashed on the reality battlefield all year round, so his reaction speed was above that of a normal person. At this distance, he lowered his body and didn't use his fists or feet. He directly went for a headbutt. His round head, along with the sharp and angular tactical helmet, struck between Yu Zhang's chest and abdomen. The impact wasn't small. Yu Zhang's drunkenness hadn't dissipated yet, so he nearly vomited again after this collision. What was even worse was that his balance had been lost. Last time, he fell forward, and this time, he fell backward. Fortunately, there was a place to lean on behind him. When he tripped, his shoulder hit someone's chest and the back of his head collided with something that was soft but not hard. Then, he heard a stifled, muffled cry. Zhu Maoxuan's indistinct and hoarse cursing echoed in his ears. Fuck. Zhu Maoxuan was lying on the ground. He was also a bit stunned. It was reasonable to say that Yu Zhang causing a ruckus was advantageous to him. In any case, they were all students of 6th High and companions who had come together. If they really did cause a ruckus, the ones who would be making a fool of themselves would be that group of people. He could watch from the sidelines and taunt them a few times to take advantage of them. This was one of the best results he could think of. Even if Yu Zhang hadn't caused a ruckus, he would have urged him on from the back. But how did things suddenly turn out like this? After a brief moment of confusion, the feelings on his face and body finally had a realistic explanation. Yu Zhang was on top of him, and sticky juice had splashed all over his face. The large cup of juice had even smashed into his head. Of course, the most painful part was the bridge of his nose. The back of Yu Zhang's head had smashed into it, and the bitter and fishy taste had mixed in with the juice and flowed into his mouth. It was clear that he had seen blood. Zhu Maoxuan could have dodged it. The elite society under his command appeared as a combat society most of the time. His skills were quite good. But the problem was that there were far too many people following behind him. There were 2 waiters carrying wine and fruit trays, and there were also 2 friends of scoundrels that he had brought along for the sake of raising his aura. The 4 of them blocked him tightly. No matter how good his skills were, it was impossible for him to break through. Sure enough, he shouldn't have come. What should have been a relaxing and pleasant journey of face-slapping had turned him into the spearhead. That fellow Zhu Ling was not on the same path as him. That was why he had fallen into such a plight. It must be known that this was Frost River Reality Area A. It was one of the most densely populated areas in all of Xia City. This was especially true since this was Cloud City Water Village, a large residential area. The people who came and went were players from the surrounding colleges and high schools. They overlapped greatly with his life circle. He fell here with his 4 limbs facing the sky. His nose was overflowing with blood, and juice was splashed all over his face. There seemed to be flashing lights all around him. There was no need for tomorrow. Tonight, his dignified appearance would be spread to every major college forum. This was Zhu Maoxuan's final rational thought. In the next moment, whatever face-slapping plan he had completely collapsed. Zhu Maoxuan roared as he pushed away Yu Zheng, who was still in a stupefied state. He struggled to get up and casually picked up the large cup of juice beside him. Disregarding everything else, he smashed it towards the most densely populated area in front of him. "I'll chop you bastards to pieces." A muffled crash rang out, followed by the screams of a girl. Chapter 407. The matter had undoubtedly blown up. In a short few minutes, the parties involved, waiters, police, doctors, and a large number of onlookers filled Area A of Frost River Reality to the point that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Qiu Peipei had already been sent to the hospital for treatment. Mo Han and Ruan Zihui had also gone to the hospital to take care of her. The remaining people continued to confront each other in the luxury room. It had to be said that the police were not slow. After the incident at Frost River Reality, the government's level of control over public occasions had risen by at least 2 levels. Fortunately, if they had been a bit slower, Zhu Maoxuan would have probably been sent to the hospital on a stretcher assembled by multifunctional robots. After confirming who the main culprit was, Shui Lei punched him to the ground. He still couldn't straighten his back. The terrifying spasms of his internal organs transmitted the negative effects to his brain through his nervous system. It made Zhu Maoxuan want to vomit and feel dizzy. However, no injuries could be seen on the surface. Because there were too many onlookers and quite a few people involved, the dispatched police did not take the group away from the scene. Instead, they rushed to the room to understand the situation. The police's inquiry was very simple. They were not interested in complicated grudges. After all, this was just a relatively ordinary public security dispute. The surveillance was very complete, so it was not difficult to make a judgment. Because the hospital's injury examination results had not yet come out, the dispatched police routinely left the social authority numbers of the parties involved. They informed both sides of the process of mediation and civil prosecution. Then, they informed them of the location and time limit for the injury examination. The dispatched police process was completed. Next, Mo Peng, Shui Lei, Yu Zheng, and Zhu Maoxuan had to go to the police station to make statements. Zhu Maoxuan was fine. He was already an adult and had the ability to act. As for the other 3, they had to notify their guardians according to the rules. All of a sudden, the faces of the 3 turned ugly. Mo Peng and Shui Lei were simply worried about being reprimanded by their parents. Yu Zheng's feelings were much more complicated. In fact, when he recovered from his stupor and entered the room and saw the people inside, he hated that he could not immediately kill himself on the floor. Did the heavens specifically come to torment him tonight? We give up the prosecution and request mediation. The one who spoke was Yu Qin. She and Turner hurriedly entered and immediately expressed their stance. At the same time, they took out their guardian's electronic authorization. I am the younger sister of the party involved, Yu Zheng. My father already knows of this matter. This is our stance. Yu Zheng blankly looked over. There was no effective response. Seeing her brother in a daze, Yu Qin was both angry and annoyed. But in terms of cool-headedness, she was 10 times stronger than her brother. She could already see Xie Junping and Hu Huaying standing by Luo Nan's side with dark faces. In fact, the majority of her stated attitude was directed at these two masters. Wuxia Pharmaceutical Company could not afford to offend the Xie family and the Hu family. They were even more unwilling to give their peers a reason to talk about them and expose their flaws. Yu Qin had done her best to understand the situation, inform her father, and obtain the relevant authorization in just a few minutes. Unfortunately, from the looks of the current situation, the effects were minimal. Yu Qin didn't take the initiative to talk nonsense. After making her stand clear, she stood with her brother and helped him tidy up his appearance. She took the opportunity to observe the situation in the room. She had seen Xie Junping before. She knew that he was a playboy, a first-class hedonist. But the way he was dressed right now, the way he stood by Luo Nan's side, the way he unconsciously whispered into Luo Nan's ear. No matter how she looked at it, he didn't look like the main character. She seemed to have misjudged the direction from the beginning. In fact, what Yu Zheng did, what the Yu family or Wuxia Pharmaceutical Company didn't really matter. Yu Qin's declaration was just a small interlude. Not many people heard it. At most, she earned a fierce glare from Zhu Maoxuan. Zhu Maoxuan was certainly the most restless person in the room. He saw that his gang of scoundrels from the VIP room had all come down. They couldn't be of much help, but they could support themselves. They could reason with the police. They weren't afraid at all. They had an imposing aura. However, the most crucial person was missing from the list. Zhu Maoxuan turned his head left and right, but he still didn't see anything. He could only ask his friends, "Where's Zhu Ling?" He seems to have gone back upstairs. Zhu Maoxuan only knew now that he and Yu Zhang had gone downstairs to act as gunmen. Zhu Ling, who had made this request, had disappeared without a trace. Zhu Maoxuan's mind immediately exploded. At this time, the police were still BBB, carrying out legal education. Zhu Maoxuan's anger rose to his head when he heard this. He suddenly kicked over the high-backed chair beside him. "Give this nonsense to a fucking lawyer. I want to examine my injuries right now." Zhu Maoxuan's movements were large, and his already spasming internal organs gave him an even worse experience. His body bent like a prawn. Gastric acid sprayed out, burning his throat painfully. His tears and snot also choked out. Xue Lei, the one who had done this, didn't even bother to glance at him. He obediently accepted the police's questioning. His attitude was more than 10 times stronger. At most, he was a bit worried because he had invited his parents. Xie Junping and Hu Huaying stood up at this time. They were Acumen College's student council officials. They didn't lack connections, and they were experienced in negotiating with the police. They could be considered good doctors after a long illness. They were the best candidates to handle this kind of matter. In addition, there was Tian Si, an expert in communication. She checked for any gaps and filled in any gaps. It seemed that everything was developing in their favor. As for the ability users in the room, they exchanged glances with each other. It was quite awkward. Indeed, they were all gathered inside the room. They studied the magical array, drank, and so on. There was a certain distance between them and the conflict zone at the entrance. But to let a delicate little girl get hurt right under their noses was still a very shameful thing. Even Luo Nan was no longer in the mood to study the magical array. He sized Zhu Maoxuan up and down. He recalled the old events at Ocean Sky Cloud City. He could more or less determine the cause, and he felt more and more displeased. He really wanted to find a way to fix things. And it was because of this concern that he heard the name Zhu Ling through his mental senses. Judging from Zhu Maoxuan's intense emotions, it seemed that the situation was more complicated than it seemed. Actually, Luo Nan didn't need to think about the current situation. However, he hadn't been of any use at all in the beginning, and it seemed that there wasn't much use for him in the future. It made him feel uncomfortable. Luo Nan's mind spun a few times, and he seized the opportunity to pull Xie Junping over. He asked, "Who's Zhu Ling?" "Zhu Ling?" Xie Junping shook his head. "I've never heard of him. He's not in this circle. Is he a relative of Zhu Maoxuan? Why don't you ask and see?" Luonan activated his living starry sky senses as he spoke, bringing the entire aurora cloud into the range of his senses. At this time, there should be about 10,000 people stationed in Aurora Cloud capital. Sorting out the tracks of thousands of people would have been a painful process in the past. But right now, Luonan had an initial grasp of the warning senses of a closed system. It was much easier for him to divide them according to the level of threat. What he sensed was rather subtle. The strongest reaction of malice came from Zhu Maoshuan not too far away. Luonan should have discovered this a long time ago. It was just that although this person's evil intent was strong, his body didn't possess any extraordinary strength. The stimulation was very weak. Plus, Luonan had been immersed in the study of magical arrays, so he had unconsciously overlooked this. From this, it could be seen that the alertness of a closed system, in a passive state, could very likely ignore a considerable amount of information. He had to pay attention to this in the future. Luonan continued to comb through the information. It didn't take much effort before he found 2 targets. However, it was not a malicious reaction. It was not even from Frost River reality, but from a higher level. What attracted Luonan was undoubtedly the special reflection of these 2 in the living starry sky. Ability user. And one of the ability users was quite extraordinary. There was a clear distortion to the surrounding starry sky. It was as if it was being burned by incorporeal smoke. If Luonan had observed it 2 days earlier, he would have only been able to see a gloomy and blurry nebula without the aid of the telescope. Making a preliminary judgment from this standard, this was already a B-rank ability user. There was another rather interesting point. Although there was a difference in strength between these 2 people, when comparing the constellation structures of the 2, there were quite a few similarities. Moreover, Luonan was quite familiar with it. An upright tetrahedron. A burner. It was not strange to see 2 burners in Xia City. The society statistics showed that there were over 300 of them. Most of them were in the military. A small portion belonged to Quantum Corporation. They were out for a stroll and a meal. It was quite normal to bump into them in Cloud City Water Village. These 2 people didn't seem to have anything to do with the conflict below. Luonan didn't feel any element of malice from them. The living starry sky indicated that he didn't have any connection with these 2 people in any real sense. Luonan didn't want to complicate matters. He carefully examined the burner that he suspected to be a B-rank ability user. The strength it displayed was quite astonishing. Although its format of fire was restrained, its pressure had already penetrated the depths of the mental plane. In the general sense of the 3 levels, 1 region and 1 realm, it should have touched upon the edge of the abyss region. It would have been fine if this was compared to the mentally enhanced side, but everyone knew that burners were all fleshly enhanced. To be able to obtain this kind of result as an assistant section master meant that he was already on the same level as the ears of Truth Fairchild. Did Xia City have a burner of this level? He Yuein had explained the relevant information to Luonan, but he had no recollection of it. Out of caution, Luonan controlled his soul strength to maintain a distance from the material plane. He gave up on observing the burner's true appearance to avoid being captured. That would be awkward. Luonan memorized the location and removed his senses. He didn't discover anything else after that. It seemed that this was indeed an exception. However, the appearance of a B-rank burner required his companions to be notified. This was to avoid sudden events affecting them. This was experience and it was also a principle. He Yuein and the others had been emphasizing similar requirements in their lectures for some time now. Luonan immediately published this information in the temporary mission window. There's a suspected B-rank burner and a C-rank burner. The 2 should be together. Their location is above Frost River reality. Chapter 408. It was common knowledge that extraordinaries had yet to appear within the burner community. But by controlling the special deep blue platform and mounting weapons, they could achieve extremely high destructive power. Any extraordinaries would have to kneel if they were equipped with a nuclear warhead with a yield of 10 million tons. Luonan knew this, but he didn't think about it. He was reminded by Papercut and suddenly had a new train of thought. B+ rank burners. I remember Sister Yuein saying that they all hold the rank of general? Yeah. There are some people with real power who control quite a bit of the special forces of the field army. For example, the coastal defense force closest to Xia City, where Secretary He's father worked and where Cragburst was a part of, has a special combat brigade. The commander of that brigade is a high-ranking major general called Tian Bang. He's a pretty awesome character. Tian Bang. Yeah. He has the same surname as that senior of yours, but he shouldn't be related. He's an orphan. He participated in the Deep Blue Platform project since he was young and underwent deep remodeling. Of course, this is internal information. It only circulates in the inner world. Luo Nan nodded. I understand. If an orphan or a young child participated in the remodeling of burners, it would be hard for people not to suspect the lower limits of the government and the military. This was undoubtedly something that those in power did their utmost to avoid. Is this person Tian Bang? The coastal defense base isn't that far from Xia City. It's hard to say. I haven't seen him yet. I just heard that he floats on the sea all year round, taking turns to fight with the marine mutants. He's an extremely powerful combat type. Tiske, this is troublesome. Papercut's brows furrowed tightly as he spoke. The branch's intelligence department didn't react to such a powerful person entering Xia City. It doesn't seem like he came in fair and square. Really? Luo Nan was quite calm. It didn't matter if it was Tian Bang or not. He definitely didn't have any ill intentions. Let's contact Secretary. It's best if we ask her father if he knows anything. If it really is Tian Bang, then this is quite a taboo. Luo Nan tried to contact He Yuan. Then he shrugged. He still couldn't contact He Yuan. He could only leave a message explaining the latest situation and his judgment. Right now, Xie Junping was still talking over the phone about Pan Zhuling's background. Zhu Maoshuan was still stomping his feet. His emotions stirred. It was as if he was the one being bullied. Only Mo Pang and Luo Biao were able to exchange a few curses with him. Most people could only watch coldly from the sidelines. Only Chiu Peipei's family had the qualifications to sue or to settle. Luo Nan and the others could only act as parties and witnesses, providing testimony. Going back and forth like this, he felt more and more bored. Papercut was really worried that Luo Nan wouldn't be able to take it and cause more trouble. He pulled Luo Nan to the corner of the sofa, talking as they walked. This is why many people don't like the secular world. When it came down to it, there were a bunch of rules. The more people he knew, the more restrictions there were. Look at Lei Zi, that punch was really cool, but it's going to take a long time. He might even have to go to court. Luo Nan sat down on the sofa. This time, Luo Nan paid more attention to Cat Eyes. Papercut was between him and Cat Eyes. Brother Papercut, how do you usually handle things? Me. In the middle of the night, he sent a bunch of paper dolls to his house for a party. Yeah, that's about it. Luo Nan felt that Luo Nan's expression was certainly very peculiar right now. Papercut chuckled. With supernatural powers, how could I still strictly follow the logic of the secular world? Unless this world has enough power to counter us. On the sofa, Cat Eyes gently swirled her wine glass and cast a sidelong glance. You're sick. Papercut didn't get angry. I'm just saying, right? Also, put yourself in the shoes of others. If you use abnormal logic to deal with others, others will use abnormal logic to deal with you. We're in Xia City, so it's a bit better. Look at Red Fox. He was eradicating evil and eliminating evil. But what happened to him in the end? Sometimes, I really want to be controlled by someone. I want to follow a set of rules and live a peaceful life. Headquarters might have been able to do it in the past. Unfortunately, it's impossible to count on those bastards right now. Luo Nan handed over a fruit platter as a form of consolation. He asked casually, how many ability users are like you guys? Papercut picked up a few apple slices. What do you mean by like you guys? Luo Nan thought for a moment and said, you guys have a proper job in society, earn money to support yourself, and follow the rules of the secular world most of the time. Of the ability users he knew, Cat Eyes taught dancing. Papercut had his own craft store, Octopus and Mr. White were doctors, Mr. Giant Arm ran a dojo, and Her Majesty Empress Wu ran a firm. They were all very close to the secular world. However, there were also people like President Ouyang who wholeheartedly devoted themselves to research. There were also people like Bamboo Pole who were more of a homebody and only served his peers. Cragburst and Red Fox didn't have stable jobs either, but their days were still quite comfortable. Just like this, the inner world and the secular world converged and separated. It was complicated and interwoven. Many times, it was impossible to grasp the corresponding pulse. It was very vexing. Papercut opened his mouth to answer, but he suddenly remembered that he still had a mission tonight. He turned his head with a smile and said to Cat Eyes, "How about you explain it a bit?" Cat Eyes' expression didn't change. She poured the peat-flavored wine down her throat. She sneered leisurely, but she was disinclined to pay attention to him. Papercut didn't insist. He shrugged and said, "This is the way of the world. The barrier between ability users and secular society is indeed getting thinner and thinner. There are people who oppose this trend. There are people who approve of it. There are people who let nature take its course. Xia City has fewer rules and regulations. There are many people who let nature take its course. But in other cities, there are quite a few people who are very passionate about infiltrating. They want to realize the era of ability users. There are also some people who are very determined to maintain their distance and maintain their bloodline." It was unknown which sentence aroused her interest, but Cat Eyes downed the wine in her cup in one gulp. She suddenly spoke. "Actually, they're all the same. The faction of people above people." Luo Nan understood in an instant. So they feel that they're higher than normal people? Misophobia or the desire to dominate. Cat Eyes laughed to herself as she spoke. She cast a sidelong glance at Luo Nan, for example, a certain someone. Boss Luo. What do you think?" This topic was off topic. Plus, it didn't seem like an inquiry. It seemed more like sarcasm. Luo Nan didn't want to answer, nor did he feel the need to. Xie Junping just so happened to finish making a round of phone calls. He walked over and said, "Nanster, I got some information. That Zhu Ling is the son of Zhu Maoshuan's uncle. He joined the military many years ago. Recently, he was transferred from the City Defense Army to the Coastal Defense Army. He's already a lieutenant colonel. I heard he's a burner." "Burner? The Coastal Defense Army?" Luo Nan and Papercut locked gazes. They immediately thought of the two people upstairs. No matter how many burners there were in Xia City, no matter how many talents there were in the Coastal Defense Army, they couldn't just randomly pick a B+ rank big shot, right? It's 80% likely. This damn luck. Who is it? Xie Junping didn't want to quarrel with that bro Zhu Maoshuan. He sat on the sofa, leaned back, and groaned. Only now did he show a bit of the elegant demeanor of a hedonistic young master from before. Luo Nan observed a bit through the perspective of the living starry sky. He felt that Xie Junping's constellation projection really did have some subtle changes. However, the most important thing right now was to investigate the person suspected to be Tian Bang. Luo Nan didn't have any enmity right now, but if a grudge were to form because of his relationship with Zhu Maoshuan and Zhu Ling, then it would be a headache to deal with it. Luo Nan was just about to go investigate when a voice rang out from the door. Everyone had sharp ears and eyes. They heard the voice over there. "Tian Si. You're here too? Perfect. Call everyone over. Let's discuss how to deal with this." Who was this? The voice was a bit familiar, but what left a deeper impression was the arrogant and bossy attitude. At first, one would think that a big boss like President Ouyang or Her Majesty Empress Wu had personally come. Luo Nan really didn't remember who it was for the time being, but Xie Junping, who had just relaxed, suddenly sat up straight. What's he doing here? In any case, he doesn't come with good intentions. This bro will seize the opportunity to put on a show or two. I'm afraid Tian Si won't be able to handle it. As he spoke, Xie Junping hastily got up and walked over. Luo Nan and Papercut glanced at each other. Luo Nan split a bit of attention to quickly confirm the other's identity. Chen Weikan, the vice president of the Student Council of Acumen College, the president of the Mutual Assistance Association. He had an elite face, but it was hard to have a good impression of this fellow. Right now, Chen Weikan was wearing a casual suit. It didn't quite match the atmosphere of Frost River reality. However, his posture was tall and straight. His every movement was very stylish. He really did attract the attention of others when he walked in through the door. However, if he were to maintain this posture and walk into the crowd, it was hard to say whether or not the loyal Xue Lei would give him an iron fist. Chen Weikan didn't pay attention to Xue Lei. It could be said that he didn't pay attention to anyone. He was just a bit dissatisfied with Tian Si, who stood there stiffly. Tian Si wasn't as quick-witted as usual, but he didn't say much. He just waved his hand and strengthened his body language. At the same time, he used his wristband to talk to someone else. I also hope that Frost River Reality can deal with this in a timely manner. I don't want the existence of some black sheep to affect the good reputation of the students. All right. Manager Ian. You'll be here soon, right? All right. We'll talk when you arrive. Chen Wei can let out a light breath and his expression relaxed a bit. He turned his eyes and saw that Tianxi was still standing there. He was a bit surprised. Everyone has been summoned? Everyone is here. The police officer is here too. What's the point of summoning? Xie Junping walked closer and said with a chuckle, Vice President Chen, it's rare to see you come to a place like Frost River Reality. Which honored guest are you entertaining? Chen Weizan's gaze swept across Xie Junping's face. There was no emotion. There was no hostility. It was more like he was ignoring Xie Junping. But if one were to say that he was arrogant, it seemed that his mind was a bit scattered. Luo Nan observed and sensed from the side. It was a bit strange. However, what attracted his attention the most was the person Chen Weican was talking to. His surname was Ian, and he was the manager of Frost River Reality. Could it be? Before he could finish his thought, Luo Nan was reminded. He confirmed that a familiar target was approaching from far away. She had entered the edge of his sensing range and was rapidly closing in. Luo Nan no longer paid attention to how Chen Weican and Xie Junping would negotiate. He sat on the sofa and his brows furrowed. He locked onto his target and watched her approach step by step. Not long after, Luo Nan was able to clearly perceive the sound of her footsteps through the deliberate filtering of his mental senses. The footsteps broke for a moment when they were about 30 meters apart, but they soon connected. Several seconds later, there was a knock on the door. A white-collared beauty with an outstanding temperament stepped into the room. Her makeup was exquisite, and her bearing was extraordinary. She perfectly displayed the most appropriate and mature style of a woman of her age. After she entered the room, she turned her gaze and took in the situation of the entire room. Her cold gaze paused slightly on Luo Nan's face before sweeping across Paper Cut, Cat Eyes, and Shui Lei. She concealed herself quite well. If Luo Nan had not anticipated this, he might have missed it. This kind of directionality meant that they were both in the same trade or enemies. There was no other possibility. Sure enough, it was Yin Lu. Luo Nan was baffled. Why wasn't this sister holed up at home and properly serving the human-faced arachnid's avatar? What was she doing out here? Luo Nan's thoughts were extinguished, and his heart sank without the slightest warning. Well, that wasn't right. The signs existed, and they clearly appeared above the living starry sky. At this moment, the B+ rank burner in the Long Willow Pavilion, who was several hundred meters away, suddenly surged with hostility. He pointed in the direction of the room and locked onto his target. Chapter 409. From Luo Nan's perspective, the other party's hostility was obvious. She had locked onto her target and would make a move in an instant. However, due to the gap in perception, the other people in the luxurious room did not react. Overall, the atmosphere was still very calm. Ha! Yin Lu? Paper Cut recognized Yin Lu. Yin Li's identity in the inner world was semi-public. After all, the Frost River Waterway project relied on Frost River Reality to exist. It was a multifaceted collaboration. There needed to be a person overseeing the project to make everyone feel at ease. Paper Cut knew, but he did not take the initiative to greet her. He could see that Yin Lu was not in a good mood. His gaze swept across the room, and the smile on his face, which could still be considered professional, was about to disappear. Paper Cut chuckled. She seems to have a problem with you. Luo Nan grunted. He was not surprised. From Yin Li's perspective, Luo Nan could be considered the main culprit behind all the turmoil at the Frost River Reality flagship store on Fudong Main Street. It started with him. He catalyzed the escalation of conflicts. In the end, the gold-sucking pool with a daily revenue of over 10 million became a bottomless pit that needed to be renovated. It had yet to recover to this day. Other people might not know the twists and turns, but how could Yin Lu, the vice oblatum of the Blood Flame Order, not know? Luo Nan had seen her through the Wraith sign at least 2 or 3 times recently. She had expressed her grievances during the high-level meetings of the Blood Flame Order. The depth of her grievances could be seen. Now that she saw Luo Nan again and gave him trouble, Yin Lu did not immediately lose her temper. This showed that she had cultivated herself well. Luo Nan did not have the time to understand Yin Li's thoughts. He leaned back on the sofa. His eyes looked empty, but they were actually transparent. The focus of his attention jumped from the B+ rank burner to Yin Lu, and then to the human-faced arachnid avatar that accompanied Yin Lu. After all, this fellow truly belonged to him. Right now, the Wraith sign was habitually hiding at the border between the Abyss region and the Polar domain. This was a domain that 99% of ability users would find hard to reach. No one but Luo Nan could detect the Wraith sign in the room. The Wraith sign was like a greedy beast. Its 6 pupils circulated with colorful light as it instinctively searched the area for a target it could eat. As his level of power increased, the average emotional turbid flow was no longer attractive to the Wraith sign. Ordinary aptitude users were nothing to him. Apart from the fact that their instincts to devour their own kind still existed, their diet was getting narrower and narrower. It was precisely because of this that the Blood Flame Order's members were so moved by the hunting of the wing-hand vampire bats this morning. Soon, the Wraith sign searched the vicinity of the luxurious room. It didn't have the guts to touch its true master, Luo Nan. The rest of the ability users didn't enter its eyes. From this point of view, the current Wraith sign was a picky eater. It wouldn't eat it rashly. It was extremely easy to raise. It was also a street sweeper that devoured the avatars of other faced spiders. Its contribution to society had skyrocketed. Luo Nan laughed involuntarily when his thoughts reached this point. But soon, he was unable to laugh. B+ rank burners were already extremely profound on the spiritual plane. When their hostility manifested, the pressure was even greater. At this time, they had already entered the Abyss region and continued to explore deeper, searching level by level. Yes, search, that's right. Luo Nan finally understood. It was a bit far-fetched to say that the B+ rank burner was targeting Yin Lu. After all, Yin Lu was a famous character in both the mortal world and the inner world. A suspected important member of the military actually wanted to set up a trap to target her. There were many aspects that didn't make sense. But if the factor of the human-faced arachnid was added, the relevant reason instantly became sufficient. After all, the human-faced arachnid was the most dangerous dark-side life form that the military and political departments of Xia City had joined hands to obliterate. This reason alone was enough to suppress everything else. Luo Nan saw a wisp of fiery smoke continue to spiral upwards. The Abyss region wasn't enough. It continued to go deeper, gradually approaching the boundary between the Abyss region and the Polar region. The most terrifying thing was the aura of life within the fiery smoke. It was a faint wisp, but its foundation was strong. It was like the fragrance of meat. The fragrance rose in spirals after being roasted by the smoke and fire. The human-faced arachnid hadn't been found yet, but this idiot, driven by instinct, was gradually unable to restrain himself from the fragrance of meat that drifted over. It became quite restless. If Luo Nan's thoughts hadn't intervened in time, this idiot would have probably charged over in delight. Then it would fall headfirst into the trap. Now the situation was clear. This was a trap. A trap targeted at Yin Lu, targeted at the human-faced arachnid, and even targeted at the Blood Flame Order. Chen Wei Can was the bait of the real world. He had lured Yin Lu over. The B+ rank burner was the hunter. He specialized in targeting the human-faced arachnid. He had used a technique to lure it. These two might not be the only participants. The officer called Zhu Ling was most likely one of them. And no matter how many participants there were, no matter which power was behind the scenes, one thing was certain. They had obtained extremely accurate information. Think about it. How long had it been since Yin Lu took control of the human-faced arachnid? It had only been this afternoon. The first grazing hadn't even begun yet, but the other party was already certain that the human-faced arachnid was by her side and had set up a trap targeting her. This was the tempo of a traitor. The faces of the upper echelons of the Blood Flame Order instantly flashed in Luo Nan's mind. Unfortunately, his understanding of this group of people was still superficial over the past month. It was far too difficult to find the so-called traitor. He took a deep breath and steadied his mind. The B+ rank burner was not targeting Luo Nan, but his target was undoubtedly the Wraith sign. As one of Luo Nan's most important believers, The Wraith sign was once the sole reliance of Luo Nan's mental attacks. Even now, the Wraith sign held a pivotal position in Luo Nan's sealing system. Therefore, Luo Nan received an astonishing pressure from the living starry sky while the other party was unaware of it. The starry sky fluctuated from nothing, and it seemed to grow more and more intense. This was definitely not going to work. Luo Nan didn't have the time to think too much. He first overstepped his boundaries and stepped over Yin Lu. He gave the Wraith sign an order. Go deeper. Go deeper. Luo Nan let this idiot dive deeper into the mental plane and play hide and seek with the other party. As long as the other party could not truly lock onto the Wraith sign's position, it would be hard for him to determine Yin Li's position. It was possible to delay for a period of time. The short-term results were fine. The other party had been using his baiting methods for a long time, but he had gained nothing. He was already a bit puzzled. The mental smoke began to change directions substantially, doing even more useless work. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief. Right now, Yin Lu was completely unaware of the impending crisis in the room. She was just negotiating with Chen Weikan. Her professional attitude was top-notch. Luo Nan didn't care what they said. At most he was curious. Was this fellow Chen Weikan purely a bait tool, or was he a participant with autonomous capabilities? Yes, let's let the details go for now. Driving the Wraith sign to temporarily hide in the polar domain was the only thing Luo Nan could do from a technical point of view. But this kind of hiding could not last long. Let alone others, even Yin Lu herself would panic if this continued for too long. The connection between the Wraith sign and Yin Lu was extremely weak when hidden in the polar domain. This could very well lead to new misunderstandings. Who cares what misunderstandings she has? It would be smoother to consider things from his own perspective. Luo Nan's heart thumped. He had enough headaches lately because of the matter with the Wraith sign. It was said to fish in troubled waters. Perhaps this was an opportunity. If he could really take advantage of the chaos to retrieve the Wraith sign and throw the blame onto the military, then wouldn't it be the best course of action for him to stay out of the matter? Luo Nan couldn't help but ponder upon this thought. He was calculating how many resources he could use. His thoughts drifted, and he suddenly noticed the temporary mission window on the psychic wave network. There were only a few messages left, and he was suddenly stunned. Last time at Frost River Reality, it was more or less like this, right? He was even more selfless than this. He wholeheartedly wanted to save people, and then he messed things up and got out of hand. Right now he had Paper Cut, Cat Eyes, and Shuelei by his side. It was true that these were his helpers, but how dangerous would it be to face a B+ level power? Not to mention his own brothers and sisters, classmates, and so on. Bang! Luo Nan smacked his own head. What's wrong? Paper Cut was baffled. Nothing. I've cleared my head. Luo Nan let out a breath. He was a bit annoyed. He Wei had been exhorting him to his face every time she gave him a lesson. She told him to pay attention to teamwork and other matters. Why did he nearly act willfully when things came to this? You need to grow up a bit. Luo Nan muttered to himself. Papercut thought that Luo Nan was talking to him and didn't hear him clearly. He asked, "What did you say?" Luo Nan laughed. "Tonight's gathering will end here. Staying here will just be watching people act cool. It's better to leave." Papercut swept his gaze over to Chen Weikan and laughed. "A wise choice. Then let's go." Luo Nan's mind was set. He didn't hesitate any longer. He simply stood up and headed outside. His movement was not a big deal, but Yin Lu instinctively became alert. She couldn't be blamed for this. After the two incidents at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City, Luo Nan's reputation had rapidly spread throughout the inner world. He had established a benchmark. Right now, who didn't know that Luo Nan of the Xia City branch was a young man capable of tossing and turning? His talent was outstanding, and he was vicious and merciless. Snake Tongue, Puppeteer, Tank, and other veteran ability users had all fallen to his hands. Especially Snake Tongue. Yin Li's position in the inner world was roughly the same as Snake Tongue's. Such a shrewd and powerful curse master was gone just like that. How could Yin Lu not be vigilant? Chen Weikan had been talking to Yin Lu, but he saw her mind wander. He followed her line of sight and finally noticed Luo Nan. As a leading figure for many years, Chen Weikan was extremely sensitive to the general atmosphere. He soon discovered that this boy, who was walking outside, had a childish air about him. Not only did he attract Ainli's attention, even Xie Junping, Hu Huaying, Tianxi, and the others naturally focused their gazes on him. The degree of focus and intensity had already exceeded the scope of normal attention. The conversation that had been within his control suddenly couldn't continue. At this time Xie Junping opened his mouth and asked, "Nanster you?" Luo Nan laughed. "Everything's fine here. Let's go home." Xie Junping was stunned. But when he heard these words, even Cat Eyes, who was usually indifferent to him on the sofa, stood up with a cold snort. Tianxi, Papercut, Xue Lei, and the others directly started walking. They felt inexplicably excited. He shrugged and pushed Du Yong, who still didn't know what was going on, to keep up with them. He laughed and said, "Then let's get out of here." Several people moved, forming a chain effect. Hu Huaying, Mo Peng, Luo Biao, and the others instinctively moved as well. The standoff in the private room suddenly collapsed. For the fastest and most accurate novel reading, please visit Chapter 410. The group of people didn't leave just like that. Some people, like Luo Nan, had already unloaded their peripheral equipment due to the haste of the incident just now. Others hadn't. Even if they wanted to leave, they had to finish their business. The room was in a mess. But no matter how chaotic it was, everything was in accordance with Luo Nan's will. It didn't matter what Chen Weiken said at this time. It was meaningless. Chen Weiken did not look too good. His failure to control the field was secondary. The most crucial problem was that his target, Yin Lu, had clearly been affected by Luo Nan. She was a bit absent-minded and probably had thoughts of leaving. Chen Weisan's thoughts spun rapidly and he decided to make some slight adjustments. He took advantage of the fact that Luo Nan had yet to leave the room to greet him. "Fellow student, I remember that you're also a student of our school. Regarding this matter, I think we should maintain close communication." Chen Weisan's memory could be considered excellent, but it was useless. In any case, Luo Nan had no intention of cooperating with this person. His gaze streaked across Chen Weisan's face, and he used his chin to point at Zhu Maoshuan, who was still accumulating rage points. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. As long as we remember him, we don't care about anything else. You guys talk. F***CK. Zhu Maoshuan couldn't take the provocation. He stomped his feet and wanted to hit someone, but the police were right in front of him. His group of friends were afraid that he would suffer a loss, so they pulled him back one after another. Luo Nan was disinclined to pay attention to the fuss over there. He walked straight over. Chen Weiken inexplicably moved his body to the side when faced with Luo Nan's gaze, giving him some space. However, it was difficult for him to correct himself. One figure after another followed, including Tianxi. This beautiful subordinate who had been working by his side for many years was gone. She walked past him expressionlessly. "You're playing this game too?" Chen Weiken felt an impulse and said in a commanding tone, "Tianxi, stay here." Just last weekend, when he spoke like this, Tianxi still showed the respect of a subordinate. Now, Tianxi was indeed reacting. She paused and turned sideways, as if by instinct. But in the next second, she retracted her gaze and completely ignored Chen Weikan, who was right in front of her. She pointed at the police officer who had not spoken for a long time. "Mr. Officer, have you gone through all the procedures?" "Yes." "According to our previous agreement, as long as the relevant party issues an explanation, the guardian can wait until the injury examination is finalized before considering whether or not to notify the guardian." The police officer had been ignored for a long time. Finally, someone seriously asked for his opinion, and his attitude was very good. "Yes, as long as you remember to follow the police's request and provide a timely explanation, it'll be fine." "Thank you." Tianxi bowed politely and left. From start to finish, he didn't even look at Chen Weikan. Chen Weisan's face darkened visibly. He subconsciously raised his arm, wanting to do something, but with a bunch of people watching him, this embarrassing action was eventually controlled. Luo Nan was the first to go out, but he had a clear understanding of the events that occurred afterwards. He had a guess in his heart. Chen Weikan was more or less autonomous, but he seemed to know very little about the inner world. Perhaps he had just come into contact with this domain, or perhaps he had been on the fringes for many years. The latter was more likely. Looking at the connections, this trap targeted at Lu and the human-faced arachnid was certainly organized. The possibility of him being from the military was higher. Chen Weisan's background was also closer to the military. Since that was the case, it was best to ask Yuan about the relevant questions. But up until now, there had been no reply from the temporary mission window. The sound of footsteps approached from behind, and Tianxi took 2 quick steps to catch up. Her attitude was different from the cold and aloof one in the room. She was a bit nervous right now. She called out, "Junior," but she probably felt that it wasn't too appropriate. She ended up cutting it short. Luo Nan's mind was like a clear mirror. He knew that it wasn't easy for Tianxi to decisively choose a side after years of resistance. Even though this kind of decisive choice was a bit too much. He didn't have any ill feelings toward Tianxi. Moreover, he felt a bit apologetic because of the matter at Ocean Sky Cloud City. He didn't want Tianxi to be overly worried and fearful, so he turned his head and smiled to comfort her. Then he thought of Chen Weisan's position in the school. He was afraid that Chen Weiken would make things difficult for Tianxi later, so he said, "Senior sister, you're about to take the postgraduate exam. It's fine to let go of some school affairs." His words were simple, but Tianxi misunderstood. She immediately said, "I'll resign from my position in the Mutual Assistance Society when I get back." Holy crap! Luo Biao, who had followed them out, gasped in surprise. He couldn't help but move closer to Mo Peng's ear. "Hey Nanster, you're a big shot now?" Mo Peng had been stupefied for a long time. He was affected by the atmosphere back in the room, so he unconsciously followed them out. Now he came to a realization. Why was it that when Nanster moved, half the people in the room followed him? It must be known that practically everyone here was older than Luo Nan. Not to mention Tianxi, Xie Junping and Hu Huaying were even cadres of the student council. Their family backgrounds were quite extraordinary. But these people all had Luo Nan as their axis. They naturally didn't have a trace of reluctance. This didn't make sense. Mo Peng was stupefied when Mo Han, who was accompanying Chiu Peipei, called, "Is everything all right over there?" No. Actually, Mo Peng didn't know whether or not this counted as an issue. Mo Han believed him. She just told him, "Yu Qin just asked me for Luo Nan's number. Is the police's judgment leaning more toward us?" Yeah. If you want it, then you want it. If you don't, then it'll be too late." Huh. Luo Nan heard the conversation between Mo Peng and the others clearly from up front. This gave him a reminder. He immediately discussed with Papercut in a low voice, "Mo Han and the others are still in the hospital. Take them away. Don't stay here any longer." Papercut was startled. He finally felt that Luo Nan wanted to leave. Aside from not wanting to cause trouble, there seemed to be some special considerations. Is something the matter? This message was sent to the temporary mission window. Cat Eyes and Shuelei could see it, and their gazes immediately shot over. Luo Nan also responded from the mission window, "That B+ rank doesn't seem to be here purely for a meal." In reality, there was certainly some other plan. It was just that Luo Nan didn't want to talk about the details of the human-faced arachnid and the blood flame order. Papercut didn't know this. He asked, "It's not targeted at us, right?" "It should be." Luo Nan sensed something before Papercut could fall. The B+ rank burner was still searching, but the direction of his mental smoke was no longer in the Abyss region or the polar domain. Instead, he quietly turned back to touch the area where their group was located. What was going on? Did he start to change his train of thought because he couldn't find the human-faced arachnid? That side was quite confident in their source of information. Luo Nan's lips curled. He was worried that the Wraith sign would hide in the polar domain for too long, creating unnecessary misunderstandings for Lu. Since the burners had changed their train of thought a step ahead, Luo Nan took advantage of the situation. He pulled the Wraith sign out of the polar domain for a breather. It was the same as playing hide and seek. As it turned out, Luo Nan's choice was extremely timely. Lu was clearly a bit restless in the luxurious room at this time. The appearance of Luo Nan and the other members of the Xia City branch had already made her vigilant. The human-faced arachnid's ambiguous attitude put a great deal of pressure on a newbie like her. The human-faced arachnid's clone promptly returned to its normal area, allowing Yin Lu to let out a secret sigh of relief. However, she was a priest who had cultivated for a long time. She more or less had some intuition. The slight disharmony she experienced over and over again formed a rather negative psychological suggestion. It made her want to retreat spontaneously. These changes were all reflected subtly in the living starry sky. How interesting! Luonan subconsciously grinned. He wasn't a heart-reading demon. He was unable to see through Yin Li's specific thoughts, but he was able to observe all sorts of details, piecing them together to form an approximate judgment. Right now, Luonan relied on his mental senses to deeply enter the vast material plane and the mental plane. He had a rough grasp of the picture of life of tens of thousands of living beings. From this, he formed a relatively abstract living starry sky. He could feel the minute changes created by various factors, such as emotions. As his observation experience grew and his understanding of the development of the situation deepened, the layers, angles, and details that he had unconsciously overlooked in the past gradually gained practical significance. He could more easily organize and generalize, forming a comprehensive, three-dimensional, and intuitive picture of observation. It was like playing a map cheat and playing a strategy game with a group of opponents submerged in the fog of war. There was a sense of superiority in beating him up in all aspects. Of course, if Luonan truly believed that he was beating him up in all aspects, it could only mean that Luonan had lost his mind. A B+ rank burner. An organized and premeditated action trap. This was the tempo of the base's technology tree rising to the top. If the other party really wanted to make things difficult for him, then he could just use his normal attacks to blow up this side. At this stage, Luonan could only play 2 games of hide-and-seek. Then he would run as far away as he could until the game ended. Pay attention to the one in front. Papercut suddenly sent a warning from the temporary mission window. His gaze is unfriendly. Luonan's mind temporarily withdrew from the macroscopic picture. He raised his eyes to look forward. Right now, the group of people were about to enter the elevator in the lobby of the amusement park. And at the edge of the crowded entrance stood a 30-year-old youth. He released his aura, completely unrestrained. He was a burner. This life sketch looks very familiar. Luonan quickly confirmed that this person was the one following the B+ rank powerhouse. Perhaps it was because of the strong first impression, but this person's ramrod straight figure looked very much like a soldier, even though he was dressed in casual clothes. This person didn't avoid the gazes of Luonan and the others, but he didn't respond either. His gaze swept past their faces one by one, and he just watched quietly. He was like a relatively eye-catching passerby. It looks like he's counting heads? This person seems a bit inexperienced. He's a lackey. A few ability users were discussing in private when Xie Junping suddenly came over and whispered, "He's Zhu Ling. I just saw his photo. There's no mistake." Really? Luonan was a bit surprised, but he did see traces of a silhouette that was similar to Zhu Maoshuan's from this person's face. Zhu Ling didn't have that much of an evil aura compared to his cousin. However, his gaze was calm and straightforward. It made people a bit unhappy when they stared at him. The group of people still hadn't figured out how to deal with this when the mission window suddenly flickered and jumped. He Yueyin, who hadn't replied all this time, contacted them through instant messaging. Luonan and the others greeted her one after another. "Sister Yueyin." "Hello, Secretary." From the video, it could be seen that Yueyin was multitasking. She was contacting someone. Her brows were slightly furrowed, and she wasn't in a good mood. She hung up after several seconds and focused on this side. "Apologies, Mr. Luo. Apologies, everyone. I just saw this, but there's a matter that just so happens to be related to you." Without any pleasantries, Yueyin sent over an electronic file. The format was extremely formal, and it clearly bore the authority seal of a government department. Yueyin explained further. The Xia City Police and military received a reliable tip that traces of the human-faced arachnid's clone were discovered in the vicinity of Cloud City Water Village. They decided to launch a search operation at the last minute. According to the agreement they reached with the society a month ago, they hope that the nearby members of the society will cooperate. It can't be. Xia City hasn't been swept clean yet? Shuelei had confronted the human-faced arachnid head-on before. He had a deep impression of the formless and shadowless demon. He immediately drew in a cold breath. Papercut was more concerned with practical issues. Did they say how to cooperate? He Yuan opened the electronic file and indicated to Luo Nan and the others to look at the highlighted paragraphs. They demand that all members of the society within a radius of 15 kilometers, with the main building of Cloud City Water Village as the center, must report their current location and go to a designated location to record their privileges. They want to clear the area? Yes. In principle, no ability user is allowed to stay within this area. After recording their privileges, the members who wish to participate must obey the commands of the military and police. The military and political departments and the society will give corresponding rewards. Those who don't wish to participate must quickly leave the scene to avoid the human-faced arachnids' invasion. While He Yuan was explaining, Luo Nan and the others had already waited for the elevator to arrive. They poured into the same elevator. Who knew that Zhu Ling, who had been observing with cold eyes all this time, would suddenly take 2 quick steps forward, openly following them. The gazes of several ability users gouged at Zhu Ling's face at the same time, but Zhu Ling pretended not to notice. Luo Nan sized up Zhu Ling a few times. At the same time, he sent a message through the mission window. This document was sent within 5 minutes, right? 4 minutes and 20 seconds ago. This job. Luo Nan gasped in surprise. He had gotten through all of Xia City's military and political departments in one afternoon. As soon as he failed to lure the human-faced arachnid's clone, he immediately caused a big scene. He even gave the green light all the way. Even the society was mobilized. This further confirmed his previous conjecture. It was very likely that Xia City's military and political departments were leading this operation. He could see their determination even more clearly. Sure enough, relying on a cheating device to hide and seek wasn't a long-term solution. Leaving the battlefield as soon as possible was the wisest choice. However, the other side didn't want to let go so easily. Luo Nan gave Zhu Ling another glance. He wanted to probe deeper, but he was worried that Mo Pang and the others were present. He cast a glance at Papercut. Papercut understood tacitly. His fat face instantly revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. Hey? Little Ling, that's you, right? Zhu Ling was stunned. He didn't have time to react before Papercut grabbed him. Aha, I'm definitely not mistaken. I've seen your photo before. You look so handsome even without your military uniform. Chapter 4:11. In the elevator, no matter if it was Xie Junping who didn't understand, or Mo Pang, Robio, and the others who didn't know what was going on, they all felt their faces twitch when they saw Zhu Ling, a handsome man with a cold face, being crowned with the title of stupidly cute. The atmosphere was very subtle. Luo Nan was also doing his best to ensure that his facial muscles didn't go out of control. But he had already been named to help out, so he could only say hello. In the end he couldn't help but grin. Little Ling cough, what a coincidence. The temporary mission window jumped and Cat Eyes sent over a one-word evaluation, fake. Of course it's fake. This sort of name that deliberately took advantage of others had more or less broken through Luo Nan's bottom line. Fortunately, Papercut, who was an actor, took on the atmosphere. His affectionate expression didn't diminish, and Zhu Ling wasn't really stupid. He hooked his lips and really called out, Brother Papercut. In any case, this chance encounter was finally completed. The elevator went down and soon reached the 55th floor. This was the hospital where Chiu Pei was staying. Tianxi came back to her senses at this time. No matter what, she first invited Mo Pang and the other young boys and girls out of the elevator. Then she said to Luo Nan, why don't you guys chat first? We'll go see Pei and pick up Xiaofan and the others along the way. Luo Nan shot a glance at Zhu Ling and nodded. Go then. We'll be there in a bit. As he spoke, he winked at Xie Junping, telling the group of people to follow him and not delay things here. Very quickly, the place was cleared. Only the 4 people from the association and Zhu Ling were left. A total of 5 people stood in the elevator, silently confronting each other. When Mo Pang and the others turned around, both sides wiped away their fake expressions. Papercut said unhappily, You guys from the military do things in such an imposing manner. You ask for access to the human records at the drop of a hat. What's the reason? The government and the military have the right to ask any law-abiding citizen to show proof of social authority and cooperate in the performance of public security obligations. Zhu Ling stood ramrod straight, enduring the penetrating gazes of several ability users. There was no fear on his face, and his mouth was also very sharp. But in the end, he still narrated the reason that everyone was well aware of. The target of our search is the human-faced arachnid. It is very likely that this kind of darksider life form is attached to an ability user's body. It crosses the sea while deceiving everyone. The relevant examination is necessary. Papercut asked, "What about normal people? There are tens of thousands of people upstairs and downstairs, and you want to search them one by one?" Zhu Ling answered simply, "At this stage, the human-faced arachnid that remains will no longer be interested in normal people. Correspondingly, their desire to hunt ability users will become even stronger, which is why no ability user is an exception." Luonan raised his eyebrows slightly. This guy really understood. According to his intentions, Yin Lu, the vice officiant of the Blood Flame Order, had to make a trip as well. Was he trying to alert the enemy? Papercut spread his hands. "We've already met. Does this count as a pass?" Zhu Ling fully displayed the principles of a soldier. "I'm sorry, but we need to make thorough preparations." Papercut gave Luonan an inquiring look, and Luonan slowly nodded. Saying anything more would just be a waste of time. What's the big deal about going along with him? Luonan really wanted to see just what sort of method the military would use to search out the human-faced arachnid's avatar. After experiencing it for real, he knew that the matter of recording permissions was quite convenient in terms of form. The military temporarily commandeered a certain office area of Aurora Cloud City and set up the relevant equipment. All one needed to do was wear a wristband and walk around the room according to the requirements of the military's technicians. The relevant information regarding the recording would enter the database jointly managed by the government and the society. It wouldn't be made public. At least in name, the members of the society wouldn't be able to say anything. The 4 members of the society entered the room one by one. Luonan was the last. The first 3 people passed without a hitch. When it came to Luonan, things went quite smoothly. But of course, Luonan walked through the room filled with sensing devices. He simply ignored all sorts of waveforms. These were just smoke screens. The true detection method was actually on the mental plane. It was that wisp of faintly discernible smoke. It came from the suspected person. It was no longer suspected. He Yuan had confirmed their guesses. The frontline commander of this operation was Major General Tian Bang of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Warfare Brigade. It was said that the Xia city government had specially invited this person over. Luonan had reservations about this. Even though this person was a burner, his operations on the mental plane were already extremely exquisite. Compared to Fairchild, Luonan's finesse was a level higher. He was even above many mentally enhanced people. The mental smoke lingered inside and outside their domains. It was an attempt to use its unique nature to induce the instincts of the human-faced arachnid. Cat Eyes and Papercut were both mentally enhanced, but they didn't detect it at all. Luonan slowly walked out of the room and glanced to the side. There were fully armed deep blue walkers standing guard to the side. They were clearly in a state where they were ready to go. This posture wasn't too friendly. "Is there room for negotiation regarding your standard compensation?" Luonan and the others stopped walking when she opened her mouth. Zhu Ling did not expect this. He was startled for a moment before he said, "In principle. Like our boss. He has a clear record of fighting with a human-faced arachnid. His recent accomplishments are glorious. He defeated a B-rank cursemancer, a puppeteer, and a fleshly body enhancer." Cat Eyes did not say the word kill in the military's domain, but she focused on the latter half of her words. "Like me. I'm an expert in long-range sensing and guidance. I've successfully cooperated with the military many times in the past. Are you guys going to use a fixed salary for an outstanding ability user like me?" Zhu Ling's mind wandered for a moment. He should be requesting instructions from his superiors through internal channels. He spoke a second later. In order to avoid unnecessary links, the compensation is fixed. But if everyone participates in the operation and can make outstanding contributions, the relevant rewards will not be stingy. These have already been written into the document. Cat Eyes chased closely. What about the designated item? Designated? I heard that the military's research and development of the long-range guidance platform is progressing quite well. They have already successfully manufactured a single soldier model. Can this be included in the scope of rewards or exchange? If it's possible, I can help out tonight. Hey, Cat Eyes! Papercut shouted. What's up? Papercut had nothing to say when he saw Cat Eyes' innocent appearance. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Cat Eyes. It was hard not to feel a bit awkward. He had just said, the boss is in charge. How come she was undermining him? How could he know that Cat Eyes was more than happy to undermine him, especially to a certain boss? Zhu Ling acted in a businesslike manner. Lady Cat Eyes' long-range sensing ability is indeed an ability we need. If you don't mind, you can stay here for now. We will give you a reply after we consult with the equipment department. Sure. I've been drooling over that single soldier platform for a long time. I definitely won't miss the chance to get my hands on it. Cat Eyes giggled, but her gaze cut to Luo Nan's side. It was quite subtle. Then she turned to Zhu Ling. I'll say this in advance. I'm just a support job. I absolutely won't go to the front lines. We will arrange the most suitable position for every ability user. I hope so. Cat Eyes smiled slightly. She raised her hand and wagged a finger at Luo Nan and the others. Then it settled. See you guys later. Xue Lei was a bit stupefied. Is this okay? Regardless of whether it was okay or not, no one had anything to say. The event was over, so everyone naturally returned to their own homes. New events were another matter altogether. For people had come, but there were 3 when they left. After entering the elevator, Papercut couldn't help but say, Brother, Cat Eyes really has quite a bit of an opinion of you. You really need to do more work in the future. Luo Nan's lips curled, but he didn't say anything. He was still pondering over the subtle gaze Cat Eyes had cast him before they parted. The group arrived at the 4th underground floor and quickly met up with Mo Pang and the others. Qiu Peipei's medical treatment was done quite well. Her injuries didn't need to be hospitalized, so she came down with them. Everyone had to split up at this time. Papercut and Xue Lei weren't on the same path as them. Xie Junping, Hu Huaying, Du Yong, and the Tian siblings either lived near the school or had their own transportation. The ones who were truly on the so-called special bus were the group from 6th High and the trader of 6th High, Luo Nan. As for the Yu siblings and Turner, Mo Han politely asked them, and they smartly declined. They even expressed their apologies once more. So what? Things had come to this. Their friendship was most likely over. The group of boys and girls were affected by this, and their moods were a bit low. Plus, Qiu Peipei had suffered a blow to the head. She still had some symptoms, so she fell asleep in Mo Han's arms not long after they got on the bus. The bus was quite silent. Luonan sat in the very front row. The driver beside him was still a member of the society's security personnel, but he had switched shifts. It was no longer old Qin from the Colossal Arm Dojo. The two didn't have much to talk about, so it was quite peaceful. However, they had separated too quickly just now. A bunch of things were left unfinished. For instance, Du Yong specifically called Luo Nan to inform him as soon as possible if Luo Nan had any new insights into magical arrays. Du Yong hoped to continue the discussion tomorrow. Luo Nan vaguely agreed. Whether he agreed or not was another matter. Aside from this, the temporary mission window of the Hexa Ear was quite lively. Practically no one approved of Cat Eye's choice, and it led to a small discussion. Cat Eyes recovered a bit of her refreshed spirit after they separated. She spoke with certainty. Seeking new things and taking risks are the true essence of life. Otherwise, what's the point of having extraordinary abilities? Just look at old you and you'll know. As long as you don't become an extraordinary, prolonging your life and staying young are just wishful thinking. You need to do things that normal people can't do in a short 100 years. Luonan thought that perhaps this was Cat Eye's true temperament. She was most likely depressed from being shackled by the chains during this period of time. Xue Lei showed signs of being convinced. Sister Cat Eye's words make sense. There's no need for me to take risks. But when I run the Daoguan, I'll exchange pointers with all sorts of experts. I'll fight a few rounds with powerful people. This is something that normal people can't do. Papercut sighed. You youngsters should just play by yourselves. I just want to take care of my family's little store and have a successful blind date along the way. Luonan didn't want to participate. He had already begun to pretend to be asleep in the car. In any case, he had drunk strong alcohol in broad daylight. There was a sufficient reason. Right now, he needed to pay full attention to Cloud City Water Village, which was getting further and further away. The Wraith sign was his main focus. If he didn't look after her, the chances of Eenla coming out in one piece weren't high. But he couldn't resist Cat Eyes teasing him. Boss, what are you planning on doing? Are you going to continue being a boss? Or are you going to advance again? What was advancing again? Luonan didn't consider it. And if it was about ideals, he sent a simple message. Formatting theory. Developing formatting theory and restoring his grandfather's reputation were his most pressing desires. These were not secrets within the society. His avatar on the psychic wave network was the classical structure of formatting theory. Cat Eyes seemed to be quite idle. She continued to speak. Really? Are you sure this is a pursuit and not a habit? Luonan didn't want to discuss such a mysterious topic. He simply used symbols to replace his answer. Chapter 4:12. Huh. You don't need it? Or do you feel that this method of communication isn't safe? In the next moment, the communication mode between Luonan and Cat Eyes entered a deeper mental domain. Through the pull of the living starry sky, they transmitted information back and forth. Cat Eyes chuckled, completely ignoring the strange gazes of Zhu Ling and the others. This is clearly the most straightforward way, but you still wanted me to come. What are you planning? You really lack a sense of trust. Luonan ignored Cat Eyes' ridicule and went straight to the point. What do you want to help me with? Cat Eyes was even more straightforward. You dare say that the human-faced arachnid that appeared in Cloud City Water Village has nothing to do with you? Luonan smacked his lips. He suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and continued to respond with a question. How much do you know? Hee. Do you think I'm the only captive of those invisible chains of yours? If you can use this method to subdue me, why can't you use the same method to subdue the human-faced arachnid? Not to mention that many of your mental attacks are practically the same as the human-faced arachnids. Did you succeed at the Limestone Water Village pub? Cat Eyes had certainly hidden these words in her heart for a long time. Once they were spoken, they were unstoppable. Her logic was correct. There was a flaw in the time she obtained the human-faced arachnid, but this detail was no longer important. Luonan couldn't help but sigh. Why did she have to say it out loud? Didn't she know that the more it was like this, the more it was impossible for her to let go? F***ck. Luonan felt that his selfishness was overflowing at this moment. It was just as Cat Eyes said. Luonan had invited her over without thinking about how to deal with her. Perhaps he felt guilty, but perhaps it was more to comfort her. This was selfishness. It wasn't strange, but he didn't expect it to be this strong. Perhaps he had never truly considered letting go of Cat Eyes. Tonight's invitation, was it just a hypocritical self-deception? It wasn't easy to recognize oneself, but it was even harder to recognize one's own shamelessness. Luonan's mind was stifled. He didn't know how to continue the conversation for a time. Perhaps Cat Eyes liked to see her boss speechless, but Luonan had been silent for far too long by the mission window. Papercut felt that it was very likely that Cat Eyes' habit had poked Luonan's sore spot. For a youngster, this was a good opportunity to correct his character. He also began to probe in circles. There's nothing wrong with getting used to it. Speaking of which, Nanster, what kind of activities do you prefer? Speaking, I like nothing in particular. How is that possible? For example, I like to play with handicrafts, especially paper cutting. That's how I got this nickname. When I was trying to figure out a technique, I felt that it was especially interesting. Have you ever had a similar feeling? Luonan hoped to use chatting to alleviate the pain of his self-dissection. He really did seriously ponder for a moment before replying, when I'm doing research. Occasionally. Papercut was speechless for a moment. You won't have any friends if you chat like this. But Luonan was speaking the truth. Most of his memories before he was 10 years old were blurry. Before he was born, His mother had already passed away. In the first few years of his life, his grandfather had been sent to prison, hospitalized, and his father had gone missing. All of these had been muddle-headed and filled with deep darkness. But after the age of 10, the impression was very deep. He copied his grandfather's experiments. Every time he succeeded or failed, he used himself as a living body. The fear he felt when he carried out the experiments and the joy he felt when he broke through were vivid in his mind. His daily life was just like that. If there was any joy, he could only find it in life. The topic of the temporary mission window was about to come to an end when Yuan, who hadn't participated all this time, suddenly sent a message. Extraordinary powers aren't the essential difference between humans. The difference between the inner world and the secular world is a false proposition. However, researching the essence of extraordinary powers or developing all sorts of new applications have always been the two most valuable options. Mr. Luo and Cat Eye's methods are both very meaningful. Cat Eyes sent a. She was speechless at Yuan's serious newscast. They were the boss and the secretary. What a good match. Whether or not it was reasonable, this sort of newscast was a great killing weapon that could destroy the atmosphere. The topic truly came to an end. Cat Eyes sent a private message from the Living Starry Sky channel. Have you noticed? Yuan is so full that she's about to overflow, but your life is so poor that it's pitiful. Cat Eyes found another angle to attack Luo Nan. She didn't hold back at all. Some people take hobbies as their ideals. Hobbies can be shifted. In the end, there is no limit. Some people chase after higher standards as their ideals. There is no limit to their desires. It is a lifelong pursuit. As for you, you seem to want to make up for your regrets. Boss, I'm very worried for you. Luonan didn't know what the latter half of his life would be like, but he knew that he needed to return to the main topic. He forcefully changed the topic. You're at the command center now? Aha! Excellent. Actually, Cat Eyes didn't know that she didn't need to take the initiative to help him. She was very useful as long as she was there. Luonan's field of view had shrunk quite a bit with the human-faced arachnid as a fulcrum after he left. But with the addition of Cat Eyes, the fulcrum, and multi-angle observation, she was able to erect a relatively perfect observation scene. Not to mention that a portion of the wraith arachnid was inserted into the central nervous system of the enemy's brain. With this kind of support, Luonan could write his name backwards if the wraith sign was captured by these people again. However, Luonan slowly tasted the flavor. It seemed that the military's capture here wasn't particularly resolute. Lu should have sensed that something was wrong at this time with the society's leaky nature. She already had the tendency to leave before, but now she had a deep conversation with Chen Weikan. She slowly dug deeper and deeper into the essence of a matter of jealousy. Even Fan Chu's illegal operations were exposed. As a manager, he would rather spread his dirty linen in public and affect the image of the company. He didn't even consider cutting losses. What was the reason? It was probably the effect of beating the grass and startling the snake. Cat Eyes stood within the temporarily constructed frontline command center. The large screen in front of her displayed the reality monitoring image of Lu. The straightforward inclination caused her to be a bit surprised. You guys are suspecting her. Hey, this is a directional target, right? Zhu Ling responded simply. From the intelligence and performance, she's the biggest suspect. Cat Eyes hummed in response. She finally couldn't help but express her doubt in the mission window. Did they eat the wrong medicine? Why are they so generous? Yuan responded in a timely manner. The society has already given you temporary authorization. You are currently the society's main contact in this matter. You possess the relevant authority. This was undoubtedly Yuan's handiwork. Cat Eyes received this favor. She sent a thumbs-up emoticon, expressing her admiration. At this time, a person walked into the command center. He was dressed very casually. He wore a t-shirt, a sports sweater, jeans, and white sneakers. He had a student's aura off the charts. Plus, he had a personality that loved to laugh. The smile on his face never stopped. Cat Eyes communicated with Luonan. There are still ability users applying? I'm a bit unfamiliar. Before she could finish speaking, Zhu Ling had already stood at attention and saluted. Major General Tian. The person who came was undoubtedly Tian Bang. It was rumored that he had undergone modifications at a young age. He was a burner who controlled a regular combat unit. He was also a powerful B+ rank expert. But looking purely at his appearance, he seemed to be younger than Zhuling Luo and confirmed, "It's Tianbang without a doubt." His outer appearance could confuse people, but the imprint in his mental domain was real. Luo Nan suddenly thought of something at this time. Ask Tianbang about his age and the time of his modifications. Got it. Speaking of which, do you really have a reaction? Luo Nan replied. I have a reaction towards him. Back at the command center, Cat Eyes covered up once more. I'm not sure about that. But I didn't see him draw this time. According to your military's intelligence, isn't his psychic ability displayed through drawing? Tianbang's smile didn't diminish. He nodded and said, Perhaps. Lady Cat Eyes, you don't need to pay too much attention to me. I'm just casually saying it. Cat Eyes silently cursed a smiling tiger. She didn't want to let this person feel comfortable. He extended his hand to point at the screen. Yin Lu was at the tip of his finger. Major General Tian, is it really good for you to be distracted all the time? I see that you've already locked onto the target. What do you want to do next? Speaking of which, are you targeting Yin Lu alone? Or is it the entire Blood Flame Order? I've heard that your military and the Blood Flame Order have been cooperating quite well. This time, it was Tianbang's turn to evade. I'm the commander of the operation. I'm not responsible for considering other matters. TSK, they're finally moving. The screen showed that Yin Lu had finally ended her meaningless negotiation with Chen Weikan. She left with her assistant and bodyguard. Chen Weikan had already completed his mission relatively well. Naturally, he wouldn't stop them. But there was a question that needed to be clarified in the command center. Should we make a move? Tianbang shook his head. Follow procedure. Invite her to the identification room to record her privileges. Zhu Ling responded with a yes. But then he saw that Tianbang didn't make a move. He was a bit baffled. Everyone knew what recording privileges meant. Was Major General Tian not going to take a closer look? Tianbang shot a glance at Cat Eyes and grinned. She wasn't found before. The possibility of her being found now isn't high. It's good to let her go. She can leave this crowded area. We still need to thank her. Keep observing. Everyone. Yes. Zhu Ling immediately went out. He was prepared to personally act as a guide. Cat Eyes sent Luo Nan a private message. You didn't even find her. Are you helping? Luo Nan grunted and then sneered. This Tianbang is really a master who says one thing and means another. He talks casually, but he's still investigating behind the scenes. He's never relaxed. From Luo Nan's observation point of view, he could see the mental smoke still lingering. He didn't let any sliver of possibility slip by. Cat Eyes gave him a bit of praise. You've helped quite well. But the problem right now was that Yin Lu didn't know this. It was hard for her to pin her hopes on an illusory fluke. It wouldn't be strange if she made a wrong judgment or overreacted because of this. For example, Yin Li's expression could be considered calm, but her expression was very ugly. Her thoughts were extremely heavy. Up ahead, Zhu Ling was already waiting outside the elevator. Yin Lu had most likely seen him as well. But then, this woman suddenly made a large turn and walked into the washroom to the side. Her assistant and bodyguard stopped outside. Major General Tian? Zhu Ling practically thought that Yin Lu was trying to escape, but the command center didn't have an intense reaction. They just smoothly switched to the surveillance of the washroom. Yin Lu could be seen standing in front of the sink. She stared blankly at the mirror on the wall for a while. She ignored her exquisite makeup and twisted her head to face the gushing water column. Cat Eyes put herself in Luo Nan's shoes and made a preliminary judgment. She's determined to fight with her life on the line. Hey, I'm talking to you. Luo Nan didn't respond because he was listening attentively. He was listening to the whispered conversation that was currently echoing from within the Wraith Sign's body above the mountain peak of the Blood Soul Temple. The Blood Flame Order didn't choose the communication tools of the secular world. Instead, they used the Wraith Sign to directly communicate with Yin Lu. The special intent that was transmitted was undoubtedly that of the Order's High Priest, Mrs. Holder. This leader of the Blood Flame Order didn't involve herself in any messy details. Chapter 413. Yin Li's first reaction was to try again. Boss, I can try. You don't have the qualifications to take the risk. The one who responded was Mo Luan, the most senior elder of the order. His thoughts entered the space of the Blood Soul Temple. His mood was extremely terrible, and his tone was unprecedentedly harsh. Yin Li didn't give up so easily. Boss, Mr. Mo Luan, the military has a special method of luring the human-faced arachnid. The mold will definitely not be able to resist. If it is lured to death, then all of our efforts these days will be wasted. At the same time, she denied everything she had done today. Fool! Mo Luan's thoughts were like the heat waves of a desert storm. They came roaring over. You have already done something wrong. Don't try to use your wrong train of thought to remedy it. Look at the military's battle array. They are just luring a human-faced arachnid to death? They are luring us, the Order of Blood Flame, to death. If we immediately release it now, at least we won't be wiped out by the military in one fell swoop because of this. Mrs. Holder was much calmer. She waited for Mo Luan to vent for a while before slowly sending over a calm thought. Immediately release it and then return. The more you do this, the more you can protect the mold. Since they are targeting the order, it is very likely that they will treasure it more than we do. Yin Li was stunned. Mrs. Holder continued to speak. Release it according to the grazing law. We will still have priority. As long as the enemy doesn't truly want to exterminate it, we 4 shepherds will have the ability to summon it back. We have a lot of room to operate. Now execute it. Yes. Yin Li closed her eyes. Her face drooped even lower. The surging water blocked the changes in her expression. It also masked the incantation that was weak to the point of being inaudible. Everything was carried out in extreme secrecy. However, this could not be hidden from Luo Nan. Luo Nan sat in the front row of the private car that was constantly moving away. His head was drooped, as if he was in a dream. Actually, he was paying attention to what was happening in Cloud City Water Village. He saw the marvelous connection between the Wraith sign and Yin Li. It was like a spider thread that gradually grew longer and longer. It grew weaker and weaker. At this time, Yin Li gave the Wraith sign one last command. She told it to hide in the deepest parts of the mental plane. It was to stay as far away from this area as possible. Most importantly, it absolutely could not approach the material plane to hunt. After the command was given, the spider silk finally reached its limit and silently collapsed. In essence, Yin Li no longer had any connection with the Wraith Talisman. But due to the Blood Soul Temple's existence, Yin Li and the other 3 priests still had a slight connection. If necessary, they could use a special ceremony to locate and capture the Wraith Talisman. Of course, the premise of all of this was that the human-faced arachnid could survive until then. Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly. He practically wanted to recall the Wraith sign back and distance himself from this troublesome place. But as he thought about it, he didn't make a move. In front of the sink, Yin Li lightly coughed and slightly opened her mouth. Diluted blood mixed with lipstick flowed down. She closed her eyes and let the water wash over her, washing away as much of her exhaustion and frustration as she could. Release was a method that tested her ability to control herself. She more or less suffered some backlash. But she did not care about the injury. She was only worried about how long the binding command could suppress the Wraith sign's strong hunting instinct. Deep down, she was quite pessimistic. Roughly half a minute later, Yin Li finally stood up and touched up her makeup so that she wouldn't look too pathetic. Wasting precious time on this could be considered a form of exquisite self-abandonment. While Yin Li was touching up her makeup in the washroom, the military had completely activated their response mechanism. They made sure that they were loose on the outside but tight on the inside. The main route from the washroom, the elevator, to the identification room with recording privileges, as well as several possible escape routes, were all targeted by the debilitating weapon. They could be fired at any time. Tian Bang said that it was strange, but he was already accumulating power and waiting for action. As long as Yin Li made any extreme movements, he would be the first to launch an attack. But after 5 long minutes, they were greeted with a tired, depressed, calm, and cold Yin Li. Aside from her pale complexion, there was nothing abnormal about her. Yin Li took her assistant and bodyguard to the VIP elevator. This was in line with the military's expectations. She just so happened to bump into the guide, Zhu Ling, Manager Yin, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Zhu Ling of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Forces Brigade. I've already heard. Search for the human-faced arachnid. Yinlu raised her chin slightly. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. You guys have chosen a good place. Do you think that the brand of Frost River reality is enough for a few rounds? Zhu Ling was speechless. Yinlu was the first to walk to the elevator. Follow the procedure. Hurry up. I still have things to do tonight. Don't waste time. For both parties involved, the following procedure was so smooth that it made people feel complicated. From the time Yinlu entered the elevator to the identification room, to the time she left, not even 5 minutes had passed. Then, nothing happened. Whether it was the detection equipment or Tianbang's secret spying, they did not find any abnormalities related to the human-faced arachnid. If he punched the air, he would really suffer internal injuries. Even when Yinlu and her party went downstairs, got in the car and left, the operation personnel gathered around Aurora Cloud City still did not believe it. It was over just like this? Zhu Ling, who walked back, probably had this kind of expression. Tianbang did not comfort his subordinates. He just rubbed his smooth chin and smiled. This time the general staff finally has a chance to perform. Let's execute Plan B. Miss Cat Eyes, it looks like we'll have to fight overtime. Are you going to pay up and leave or stay up late with everyone? Where will the overtime be held? We're not going to move for now. I believe our prey can't run far. Then, is there wine? How about pure grain wine? Okay. If it can be paired with the military's personal combat platform technology catalog, the flavor will be even better. Cat Eyes was playing with the mood while sending a vomiting emoji at the temporary mission window. Strong start but weak finish. What the hell is this? Secretary, hurry up and tell me. Should I stay? He Yuan quickly replied. I suggest you leave. The conflict will most likely occur between Tianbang and the Blood Flame Order. There is no need for a member of the society to get involved. Has the military been rushing towards the Blood Flame Order since the beginning? Tianbang isn't from the military. Ha! There's something going on. He Yuan's reply was cut off. Papercut was afraid that He Yuan would be angry. He hurriedly said, Secretary He, help me analyze this. What in the world is going on tonight? Several seconds passed before He Yuan sent another message. From the looks of it, Tianbang has confirmed that the Blood Flame Order is raising human-faced arachnids for special purposes. From a legal perspective, as long as we can find concrete evidence, we can deal a heavy blow to the Blood Flame Order. But it won't be easy to get rid of the Blood Flame Order. Papercut had a serious attitude towards the discussion. Right now, the city-state development is very obvious. The Blood Flame Order just needs to move out of Xia City in time. Even if they hurt their vitality, they might rise again in a few years. Madam Holder has this ability. Speaking of which, the core strength of the order hasn't increased in recent years, but the business they do is flourishing. Yes. The Castle Financial Group under Madam Holder has been carrying out continuous industrial expansion for the past 2 years. They are no longer limited to just Xia City. They have set a very high stop-loss line. If they were to cut them off quickly, the military and political departments of Xia City might not be able to achieve complete success even if they really wanted to exterminate them. Luo Nan had heard He Yuan mention the concept of a stop-loss line more than once. It was originally a concept in stock trading. It was used to describe the bottom-line thinking when designing tactics and formulating plans. It was a method that He Yuan held in high esteem. If we don't consider legal factors for the time being, there isn't much meaning in targeting a declining order that has focused on commercial development in recent years. And if we really consider legal factors, Tianbang's actions today aren't perfect in terms of procedure. He Yuan's expression was quite tactful, but Luo Nan couldn't help but interrupt when he heard her. Sister Yuan, are you saying that Tianbang's will is very likely involved in this operation? He Yuan didn't directly answer. In any case, the Xia City government has endorsed this operation. Tianbang holds the advantage of legal factors. His combined strength far exceeds that of the Blood Flame Order. Madam Holder is dealing with every move as it comes. At the very least, she is cutting off the human-faced arachnid perfectly. They all have a certain amount of backup. They have some crucial information that we don't possess. the focus of the conflict is likely to shift. Therefore, I suggest that Cat Eyes withdraw early and stay out of this matter. Cat Eyes spoke. I will consider it. At the same time, she sent a message through the living starry sky. So boss. Cat Eyes adopted a posture of completely obeying his orders, giving Luo Nan quite a bit of pressure. From Luo Nan's perspective, the most realistic consideration was to grasp this opportunity and retrieve the Wraith sign. Actually, Luo Nan had plenty of opportunities. Whether it was the Blood Flame Order or the military, they had all lost control of the Wraith sign's current situation. Luo Nan just needed a thought to drag the Wraith sign back from the polar domain. From now on, the military and the Blood Flame Order would no longer have anything to do with it. However, just as Yuan analyzed this, there was a factor that needed to be considered. Backup. Regardless of whether or not Tian Bang could represent the military, regardless of whether or not the Blood Flame Order had the power to reverse the situation, both sides displayed the confidence that they could overturn the situation at any time. This made Luo Nan very concerned. Their backup was Luo Nan's tail. If he didn't handle it properly, it would be the same as adding 2 more powerful enemies to him. What should he do? Luo Nan didn't immediately reply to Cat Eyes. Instead, he closed his eyes in contemplation. There were too many things to handle. His brain couldn't bear it for a time. He instinctively reached out his hand and touched the loose-leaf notebook on his knees. It was said that a good memory was inferior to a lousy pen. At this time, it was extremely good to be able to write and draw. But right now, the car was full of people. If he wanted to do some creative work, he might really be dragged out and tormented. Mo Pang and Mo Han were capable of doing such things. Luo Nan changed his method in a flash. He used the external neuron to open up the drawing software for the flexible e-ink screen in his mind. He created a new blank page and began to toss and turn on it. Boss, are you asleep? Cat Eyes urged him for the second time. Luo Nan didn't answer. He organized his thoughts. His goal was very clear. He wanted to retrieve the Wraith sign and then stop the loss line. The discussion just now gave him a hint. Once you have a goal, you need to consider the worst-case scenario and do your best to avoid it. Set a lower limit for yourself. The Blood Flame Order's methods were worth learning, but it was impossible to sever the connection between Luo Nan and the Wraith sign. Any attempt to sever it would be a joke. Once discovered, they would be like ants on a string. No one would be able to escape. In addition, his control over the Wraith sign was number 1. There was no way he could give it away even if he wanted to. Taking a step back, he could only hide it from others. Luo Nan had this ability. As long as he didn't alarm the 2 great gods of his own society, there didn't seem to be anyone else in Xia City who could explore the polar domain. At most, he wouldn't let the Wraith sign appear in the future. Don't let others see it. Hide. 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 Huh? Luo Nan's mind suddenly went, ding. A light bulb lit up. This was the feeling. God, he actually forgot about that place. Boss. My boss? Cat Eyes was already about to sing a little tune out of boredom. She changed the way she summoned him. Luo Nan's mind was bursting with inspiration. It was the time for him to write like a god. He first used a few simple keywords to retain his general train of thought. Only then did he divert a portion of his attention. He even carried a bit of excitement as he shouted back. Shut up. Go drink your wine. TSK. Are you expressing your dissatisfaction with me? Luo Nan transformed the burst of inspiration into glyphs, pictures, and everything else that could be understood. Everything was simple during this period. He spoke incoherently. No, Cat Eyes. I need you. I really need you. Yes, that's it. What? Right now you just wait there. Wait until. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. He turned his head to ask the driver, around what time do we get home? Luo Nan had been resting with his eyes closed all this time. His sudden words really did give the driver a scare. Finally, this professional driver passed the test. He quickly guessed the answer, around 9:30 at the latest. Luo Nan made an okay gesture. It was just like the tactical movements Cragburst had taught him. There was a strong sense of ritual. As for whether the driver understood or not, it was none of his business. Listen, Cat Eyes. You wait there until around 10 o'clock. There's still an hour. Will the overtime be that long? Relax. They'll be very busy tonight. You too. I'll contact you again. Luo Nan unilaterally disconnected his mental connection with cat eyes. He began to link together various keywords and expand a step further. At the same time, he printed a simple topographical map of the large living area, Acumen College, and even the Pingjiang district. Electronic drawings and mental drawings were just that fast. In the end, the tip of the pen drew a heavy circle in the swamp jungle of Acumen College. Luo Nan let out a long breath. He was certain that his train of thought had finally connected. He looked at the sloppy draft of the plan and suddenly wanted to laugh. Look! My stop-loss line is higher than you can imagine. The car stopped at this time. They had arrived at Qiu Peipei's home for the first stop. Mo Pang and Mo Han wanted to get off the car and explain things to the parents of Qiu Peipei. How could Luo Nan care about these things? For the sake of avoiding being disturbed by these mundane matters, he didn't care about the itinerary he had just asked for. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. He really did sleep this time. He even had a dream. Even in his dream, he was still organizing the draft of the plan. He combed through the details one by one, endlessly enriching the topographical map, the living starry sky, and other elements. Chapter 4:14. The night sky was misty, and the street lights extended one after another, merging into the lights on both sides. It was the time when the night view of the city was at its most beautiful. The neighborhood was also brightly lit. There were even people holding parties at home. It was very lively. Luo Nan raised his head to look at the night sky. His feet didn't walk in a straight line. It seemed that his eyes were a bit hazy from sleep, and his soul was in a trance. Mo Pang was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to sleep just like that. At the same time, Mo Pang was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to mingle in Acumen College by himself. In response, Mo Pang's curiosity was about to climb out of his throat. How did you do it? I didn't see any talent like yours in 6th High. Hey, wake up. Ha! Luo Nan pulled his gaze away from the night sky and looked straight ahead. It could be seen that he really hadn't heard it, but his eyes were frighteningly bright. TSK, when did this kid learn to wear contact lenses? They had already arrived at the doorstep of their home. Mo Pang seized the last opportunity to move closer and embrace Luo Nan's neck. Come. Tell me. How did you get into that circle? Before he could finish his sentence, the door opened. Luo Shuqing stood at the door and stared at them. What are you mumbling about when you're already home? Oh, who drank? He sighed. Mo Pang's elbow loosened, and he watched as Luo Nan tunneled under his elbow like a loach. He tunneled in and out from Luo Shuqing's side, breaking through the living room's defenses in the blink of an eye. He scuttled up to the second floor and tossed down a few words from afar. I went to bed early today. Mo Haihang, who was sitting idly in the living room, raised his head. He looks pretty excited. Did he really drink too much? Luo Shuqing was stunned for a moment, and then loudly ordered, I want to take a bath. She faintly heard Luo Nan agree. Only then did she turn her head to stare at Mo Pang. Where did you guys go to play today? Why are you so drunk? Don't you know she's still a minor? Mo Pang was blocked at the door. His face was full of grief and indignation. He cursed in his heart, if you want to scold people, go find someone to drink. Who is your son? Perhaps it really was because of the effects of alcohol. Luo Nan entered his own room, closed the door, and leaned against the door. His heart thumped loudly and his chest faintly trembled. Of course, the most important reason was still nervousness. Whether it was the battle with Jack on the recycling stratum, the confrontation with the Order of Justice at Frost River Reality, or the conflict with the Society at Ocean Sky Cloud City, all of these were sudden incidents. He had been forced to a dead end, so he had no right to be nervous. This was the first time he had acted according to his own will. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Luo Nan took a deep breath and placed the notebook in his hands on the windowsill. Below it was his grandfather's notebook. The two notebooks fit together perfectly, without the slightest deviation. Glancing at the bedside clock, it was 9:37. The driver's estimation was quite accurate. There was still time. He went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. The hot water sprayed out and the steam quickly covered the bathroom. Even if his aunt hadn't mentioned it, he would have taken a hot bath. He stood naked under the water column, the hot water splashing on his head and rolling on his body. This caused the blood flow to accelerate, the metabolism rate to increase, and the liver function to operate effectively. This accelerated the decomposition of alcohol in the body, turning it into hot sweat that was mixed with the water and seeped out. The steam was stuffy and humid, but his mind became clearer and clearer, and it did not affect him from continuing to outline his plan. His draft plan. The drawing software page in his mind seemed to have become much richer. In particular, the outline of the streets around the large living area had changed from rough to detailed. The key details, such as the layout of the military personnel that he had detected earlier, were also clearly depicted. It was as if there was an invisible assistant helping him complete the post-production work. Luonan scratched his head and thought back to the nap he had in the car just now. He still had some vague memories. Could it be that there really was a subconscious action in that dream just now? If there was, then it should be the combined effect of self-awareness, soul strength, external neuron, and special drawing software. It looked quite marvelous, but there were precedents in the society. Mr. Bai's dream entering technique was this type of approach. Luonan didn't plan on diverting his attention to research for the time being. He hastily washed up and confirmed that most of the alcohol had been released from the steam. Then he wiped his body dry and lay back on the bed. The effects of the alcohol had been reduced to a minimum, but he was still excited. It was especially obvious after he closed his eyes. Luonan read through the draft plan step by step with these thoughts in mind. His thought sketched out a large background screen, and the corresponding train of thought flowed on the virtual drawing. Unknowingly, his consciousness floated past the boundary between the real and the virtual, touching upon the twin fulcrums formed by the human-faced arachnid and cat eyes. The living starry sky 80 kilometers away and the scene of reality were mapped over. Even though he hadn't personally experienced the scene, everything he saw was true. His thoughts traversed the air and locked onto his target. Layers of ripples undulated within the wine cup. Cat Eyes held the wine cup and looked at the fine ripples within. Her thoughts moved away from the flexible screen in her other hand and she seemed to be deep in thought. Two soft sounds rang out. Zhu Ling had temporarily assumed the role of an orderly. He placed two small plates on the coffee table and matched them with chopsticks. Then he quietly left. A plate of boiled peanuts and a plate of cold pig head meat. They were the most ordinary of dishes. However, this was the frontline command center of Aurora Cloud City. A lounge next to it. The air was filled with the fragrance of wine. From the perspective of military morale, it was indeed necessary to open up a separate lounge. I feel like something's wrong. Pure grain wine doesn't have side dishes to go with it. What's the point? Tianbang picked up a peanut and sent it to his mouth. He paired it with a mouthful of wine and his features wrinkled up on his excessively young face. He looked like a glutton. Then he leaned back comfortably and leaned against the back of the sofa. Even though it's just a side dish, the control of the heat is quite attentive. Cat Eyes shot him a glance. She was very interested in the changes in his expression. Tianbang was amused. Aren't you curious? How can a robot have a taste? Cat Eyes was speechless for a time. Tianbang's features stretched out once more as he looked up at the ceiling. The lights of the lounge shone on his face, glistening and sparkling. His face couldn't be considered particularly handsome, but the contours were clear and distinct. It truly had the texture of a sculpture. It also made one curious. What proportion of the metal structure was hidden beneath his skin? He extended 3 fingers and placed them horizontally in front of his face. The human body transformation must retain 3 points. The first is perception. This is the boundary between you and me. The second is thought. Through it, one can grasp the power of experience. The third is emotion. Through this, one can obtain vitality and spirituality. Only by retaining these 3 points, or by strengthening and transforming on these 3 points, can it be considered a success. Cat Eyes swirled the wine in her cup. Are there still people who don't transform like this? Generally speaking, it was after the burner technology appeared. Therefore, I am very grateful to the creator of this technology. It may not be perfect, but it leads to the correct reasoning. Tianbang stretched out his arms and curled them up. Looking at it with the naked eye, one could see the flow of his muscles. However, Cat Eye's sensitive ears could still hear the fine sound of metal scraping against each other. Having experienced the stupid old-fashioned transformation, I can understand this point even more. I am very envious of those who walk the right path from the start. I yearn even more for the outstanding ones. Cat Eyes swirled her wine cup and suddenly laughed in spite of herself. You are very sensitive. I didn't say anything. Really? Tian Bang put on a look of surprise. Fine. I'm just being honest. I feel a bit inferior. I'm also using this to express my feelings. There should be people watching me right now, right? Tian Bang's gaze pierced over with his final words. Though he was smiling, his gaze was filled with pressure. Luo Nan's heart spasmed, and Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows. The two were on the living starry sky plane. Their consciousnesses were connected. At this time, the mission window on the psychic wave network jumped. Papercut, who had returned home, sent a message. Hiss. This fellow. Shuelei quickly responded. He knows that we're sharing a perspective. Yes. He was talking about the psychic wave network. Luo Nan's taut heartstrings relaxed. He saw Tian Bang raise a finger. This is an old trick of your society. And I know that there must be someone I know. Cat Eyes asked with interest. Who is it? Well. Tian Bang suddenly leaned forward and shouted. Hello, Sister Yuan. Let's drink later. I'll confess to you when I get drunk. His voice was very loud. Even the private lounge could not withstand it. The sound waves rushed out and scattered throughout the frontline command center. Not only were there technical elites of the military here, but there were also police bureaucrats and members of the government security department. The atmosphere was bewildered and awkward for a time. Zhu Ling, who was temporarily in command, had a headache. He even began to doubt his life. Was it really the right decision for him to transfer to the Special Forces Brigade? Ha 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 ha. Cat Eyes burst into laughter. She rocked back and forth, so much so that her hair covered her eyes. She brushed it aside, revealing her plump forehead. She could not help but sigh in admiration. Truly extraordinary courage. At the same time, she sent a private message to Luo Nan. Do you want to get rid of him? He's trying to steal your secretary. What does this have to do with me? Luo Nan was inexplicably unhappy. The temporary window strangely quieted down. There was no movement. However, Papercut and the others were certainly behind the window with their ears and eyes open. They were paying close attention. As for whether or not Yuan was there, she was probably there. Cat Eyes didn't care about what the others were feeling. She raised her cup to Tian Bang and said, You're quite an interesting person. Come come come. Cheers. Tian Bang cheerfully raised his cup in response. I've always felt that special people like us don't need to worry about our livelihood. Then in this world, honesty is the greatest virtue. Cheers to honesty. The two raised their cups and clinked. They were in high spirits as they drank to their heart's content. Finally, Papercut couldn't hold it in any longer at the mission window. He asked the others for their thoughts. Nanster, are you still watching? Luo Nan didn't reply. He just lay on the bed. His excited emotions had returned, and they were undulating like waves. This wasn't his first time experiencing this. It was the same last time. He was also in the position of a spectator. However, the spectators weren't the two people in front of him. They were Peony and Long Seven. Whether it was Peony, Long Seven, or the current Tian Bang, their personalities were all different. However, all of them had outstanding personalities. They were thickly painted characters. They could be recognized at a glance when placed in a crowd. It could be said that they radiated radiance in all directions. In comparison, Luo Nan was like an incorporeal soul. He floated in the nothingness, hiding behind the shadows. He watched these people radiate with dazzling radiance, painting the otherwise ordinary environment with magnificent colors. Though he had similar experiences, he might not be able to achieve that calm and composed, magnanimous and fearless style in his entire life. He always believed that this was a factor of personality. Perhaps this was indeed the case. However, Tian Bang's words today pointed out another crucial factor. He had to be honest. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.